Welcome back to another Dr. Supercoach podcast. You're on once again with Pistol, and I am here with the man, the myth, the legend, Pig. How have you been?
Hi, Pistol. Very good, very good. Happy to be on and talking with you again after a weekend of footy.
We can finally test all of our theories this weekend. We're like, yeah, this player should be good based on this, but being able to see it with our own eyes is an absolute game changer.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's good to see the teams mainly, I guess, doing what they will do in the regular season. Still a few like little tweaks and twists, but I think a lot lined up kind of how we're expecting them to line up, so we can actually judge and have a little bit of confidence, I guess.
Yeah. Now, for this practice match, I guess weekend and week, it was actually a very long week. In general, one of the key things I like to consider is how the player lined up positionally, more so than what they scored Supercoach points wise. I think one thing I do like to look at, ironically, is the Dream Team points, because if they were able to get the ball and do all the actions to get the ball, then the Supercoach points will follow a lot of the time throughout the year. Ironically, in the preseason games, I follow the Dream Team scoring a lot more closely than the Supercoach, just because teams do weird things and low time on ground or whatever it is. But that's kind of how I like to assess based on position and Dream Team scores. Do you follow a similar script, or do you look at some other things as well?
For me, it is very heavily role-based, and what role do they have, and is that where we expect them to line up? Look a bit like how many CBAs or how many kick-ins they had a little bit, although I'm never as big on them as a lot of people are. It's probably more like their role and kind of what action they were doing. Like we'll talk about a few players later that had a definite role change, like Nick Martin and Max Holmes and whatnot, and like we expect them to probably do that throughout the year, so it's probably a good indication of what they did. There are some guys like Caleb Daniel who essentially played like a sub, I find that one kind of hard to judge if you're going to do that all year or whatnot. But yeah, generally it's role. Supercoach score, I don't really care that much. And also, especially for my premiums, I really don't care what my premium scored, unless it's, really unexpected. And one thing to note, like these preseason games are so open and free-flowing, and there's so many marks in each game. And as ZP Zero Pressure said in our Slack chat, he said, "It very open the preseason. Outside player go good."
Yeah,
and I think we need to remember that it's not going to be hard and physical. It's going to be just really free flowing. I think Will Hoskin-Elliott had 12 marks on whichever night they played. That's not going to happen all the time. So there's going to be some inflated scores, especially from those like free flowing halfbacks or wingers. So there needs to be some grain of salt applied.
Yeah, the Jaden Short 40 plus possessions against the Pies previously, and then I guess we should just jump straight into it, actually, talking about Jaden Short. Hey, the Collingwood-Richmond was the first game up. To no one's surprise, Jaden Short did very well again, 27 touches, 9 kick-ins, 120 Supercoach points. Now, I know Vlostuam wasn't playing, so the kick-ins are probably halved. Did you see anything from this Richmond team, or even the Short, starting with Short probably, that, I guess, screamed pick me?
I think if you were already hot on Jaden Short, I think this is confirmation bias enough to go for it. I think he's been moved back to that halfback role where he was a good scorer. I personally, he's on the same bye, I believe, as Melbourne, which is Max Gawn. So I'm trying to avoid more than one premium on each bye. So I'm kind of happy to cop one premium on each early bye, but I don't really want two.
Yeah.
So that's the reason I'm avoiding Short. But if he didn't have a bye, he'd be pretty close to my team, I think. I liked what I saw.
Yeah, I think Jaden Short's one of those 105 guys that's not priced at that. He's priced at 100, well, no, it's at 98 or 99 or something, and he's likely to go 105 plus. But that early bye really does put a dampener on it. As you said, you can't really avoid the other, Gawn being the other ruckman, because he's kind of a must select at this point. So I'm with you. I've rethought my structure and premium structure after this preseason and come up essentially with the same logic as you, that I only really want one player per bye if I can avoid selecting more. So Yeah, I had him in my team like immediately after the game, and then I'm like, actually, I'm going to think about this a bit more, and pulled him back out. So yeah, it's a no from me. But on the Richmond side, one of the, I guess, surprise packets was Naismith. He scored 87, 13 touches. Now Naismith has been playing because Nanks had some foot issues, and they seem to be lingering as well. So I think Nank is going to get an early run in the season. So I think it's as simple as selecting him as our R3.
Yeah, I think so. Well, we get to see what happens in R0, and then also we get to see round 1 to see if Nank's playing. Nank did, in the pre-game interview this game, he did say he's pretty confident he'll be back round 0 or 1, but that could just be him blowing smoke as well.
Yeah.
I think it's as simple as if Nank's not playing round 1, you pick Naismith, and that's that easy.
It's easy to make in your side now, because if you don't pick him, you're pretty much going down to 102k non-playing player. So you may as well create your team with Nank at R3 and go from there, I think. Did anyone else on the Richmond Tigers side seem Supercoach relevant?
Yeah, Thompson Dow's one I'm quite interested in. I don't know if I need him. Like, I think the midfield rookies are good enough, and the premiums are some underpriced ones that you probably don't need a Thompson Dow price point. But if he comes out with another near ton in round 0 and kind of looks like he's going to kickstart his cash gen, I'm very interested in him. He's like a little contested ball beast in there. Like, I think I said in Slack, he's like a baby skinny Tom Green. Just the way he played reminded me of him.
Yeah.
So yeah, Thompson Dow, if he has a good round 0 score, he's in consideration, but like, I wish he had forward status. I don't need him in the midfield kind of thing.
Yeah, I think the hard part for me is that he doesn't seem to be a guy that's going to mark and kick very much. So his ceiling is somewhat limited. He just like loves getting those contested clearances and those possessions, those little handballs.
Yeah.
Lots of handballs, some tackles, not even a massive amount of tackles. But I don't know if you can continually score super well if that's all you do. I mean, maybe. If he puts out another ton or close to ton in round 0, you're going to have to start asking some questions. But it just seems a bit too unlikely for me. And I'm trying to disregard the score and look at the role is good. 20 touches is not amazing. 57 dream team, also not amazing. Yeah, too many. Well, let's talk next week on that one. And Gipkiss had 8 touches, 62 Supercoach. Look, I think we know what we're going to get from a key defender, or roughly key defender. It's not going to be pretty Supercoach scoring. It's going to have games where he literally will score in the 30s, and then there'll be games where he puts out the 60s or 70s, depending how close it is. Do you think, because this has been a talking point, do you think he needs to be on your bench?
I am trying to make a team where he's D7 and he doesn't need to be on my bench.
On your field, you mean? Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. He doesn't. Yeah, where he doesn't need to be in my field. I'd like him and my other D8, if it's Zach Reed or if it's another key defender, I'd like to have them on the bench. And I know it's kind of a bit okay. Like with best 18, they may drop off and it might not be an issue. But I don't know. You could have other rookies that are putrid that round, and then you have to field him or an injury. I think he's kind of 50-50. I wouldn't be against him being on field. I think I saw in your team he's on field at the moment. Is that you're okay with that?
Yeah, I kind of like that he has a buy rounds, because it just means that he's going to make cash a little bit earlier. Yep. I think what you could potentially do is we'll see how he goes in his first round. He might be one of the guys that you could cull before his buy and get a head start in that way, and whether that's a side swap to somebody like Zach Williams or something if he delay starts. And thanks Azza for the idea. I think those types of plays could work, but for me, in the best 18, it's 4 of the first 6 rounds. Like, you have 2 rounds that you just have to survive him not having an absolute stinker, and you have, I guess, somewhat decent matchups in those weeks as well. So I'm hoping he can just survive. I don't know if that's a great strategy, but it's definitely one that I'm hoping works is just in those first 6 weeks, having some weaker rookies on the field. I feel like not going to really hurt. And I'm trying to craft my team in which I have 1 or 2, I guess, weaker rookies, because I think overall my rest of my team will be a lot stronger because of it. And I just have to survive 2 weeks and hope those aren't the weeks that they put up miserable scores.
Yeah, well, his round 4 is when it's not best 18, which is gather round, and they play St Kilda, who are a very easy matchup for defenders. Maybe there's some chipper rounds that he can get. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm not against him being on field. At the moment, I think I've got him D7, but my team's not finished yet.
In flux.
And just before we go on to Collingwood, which we will, I'll just say, if anyone was keen on Tim Taranto, I think he didn't do you any disservice. I think I think I said in our Primo podcast, I think he's being overlooked a bit as someone who could get back to a top 10 or 12 mid, like without much question. But whether he does it or not, if you weren't thinking of him beforehand, don't add him after this. But if you were one of those few people who will hold on him, I can't see a reason why not to, apart from the buy.
Yeah, but buy is a big issue.
Yeah.
But I don't think so. Bolter played more forward than what we probably. I mean, that's probably what we imagined, but it's not in the midfield. Same Baker didn't play in the midfield.
Dusty was actually fairly forward as well.
Yeah, it wasn't a good game for. There's no more Supercoach options from the Tigers.
No.
I don't think so. And perhaps actually, if we jump into the pies, we can see Dacos is just an absolute jet. 102 Supercoach from 57% time on ground. Basically didn't play the second half. I think he played a tiny bit in the third, but yeah, he just scores points for fun. It's a kind of a joke selection at this stage. He's just next level good.
Yeah, I've only got one Collingwood player in my even considering list, and he's in my lock them in list. So yeah, Nick's my first pick, and he's probably going to be my vice captain every week nearly. Yeah.
So I think just to quickly touch on Lipinski, who scored 126, and everyone said how great he looked. Yes, that's fine, but he also had done that the previous year, and then had not finished very strong. I know he got injured and stuff, but the Collingwood team's very typically not like a high possession team. I don't think we're a particularly good fantasy friendly team. We still had Pendlebury that didn't play in the game, who's going to come back in. So we're a bit all over the shop, to be honest. I would stay away from most Collingwood players. I mean, DeGoey is somebody that I think is a really good draft selection. He scored 111 in 69% time on ground, 22 touches, 1 goal, 1. I don't think he's got that 110 upside, but if you in a draft, if you look at this guy that's going to go a bit later and maybe has 105 upside, you probably can go there. But otherwise, I think the only thing this game was on the Collingwood side that was really good for was ruling out Finlay Macrae. Came on, I think it was in the third quarter and had 10 possessions. So
he was great in his very small amount of game time.
Incredibly good.
But the key words is very small amount of game time.
Without Pendlebury.
Yeah.
So it's another spot back, and he was already the sub. I think I would love him to start, but it's a sub problem. He's going to be the sub. So we can probably kill that pick off.
Lipinski to me is like a classic preseason player, and tap the sign and zero pressure said outside player go good. I think that's Lipinski.
Yeah. Zero pressure.
Yeah, there's zero pressure in the preseason. DeGoey actually was someone I put in one of my YouTube videos as someone that potentially could go 105, but that's probably not good enough for Classic. And then the only other takeaway was that I think Darcy Cameron's a no pick. I don't think anyone really was picking him in Classic, but just that split with Cox is too close to 50-50 rather than the 75-25, which the good ruckmen have.
Alrighty, so let's jump to the Carlton-Melbourne game. Look, this game was all about one player. Max Gawn, 130 Dream Team, 185 Supercoach in 74% time on ground. He showed us what he can do without Grundy, and it is scary. It is incredible, and he cements himself as a captaincy option moving forward.
Yeah, sure. And you and I actually mentioned this 2 weeks ago on our 5Ps podcast. We were saying that Gawn is the much bigger lock than Grundy, and that has proven right now. And yeah, he's easily a top 3 ruck. You could easily say top 2, maybe even challenge English. I don't know, but yeah, Gawn, just pick him. I'm not going to go anywhere else with that.
So I think the only, surprise packs from this game, Salem played as a midfielder, not as a defender. 102, 103 Dream Team, 102 SuperCoach. I guess my concern is he's not particularly cheap in Classic. You're paying a primo price for a premium player, but do you think he could be good enough in the season to actually challenge the top 10 defenders?
This game, Clary didn't play, and I feel like he was kind of in the midfield mainly because Clary didn't play. I think he will probably come in a fair bit more in kind of filling Brayshaw's shoes a bit.
Yeah, I think he's the main guy.
Yeah, I would have liked to see this with Clary. It was really impressive to see him get 9 tackles as well as his kind of 15 kicks, which is what helped him get a ton. I don't think he's a 105 guy. I don't know. I don't like picking players who were never on my radar before pre-season, and I hadn't even thought of Christian Salem, so I'm not going to pick him.
He had 22 CBAs, which was a game high from either side. Mm-hmm. I think he's the guy that will benefit from Brayshaw's unfortunate retirement. So Clary does share the load, absolutely. But I think this role is here to stay. But my issues with Salem is he's very injury prone. He's 420k, so he's not that particularly cheap. He has the early buy. I know that's good. We can see his role, but it's not good for having an early buy as a premium. There's probably enough there that I don't go for, but so might be another draft pick. How did you see Billings and Windsor for that matter?
Windsor I loved. I think he's definitely a pick, although I was wary of him because he's playing the wing and Lockie Hunter's still not back. But there has been a fair bit of news out that Lockie Hunter may miss quite a few weeks.
Yeah.
I think whatever he has is more serious than they first thought. So, yeah, Windsor, absolutely. He looked incredible. Like, he only had 11 touches when I'm looking at now. He looked like he's everywhere. And he needed 2 goals to get a 77, but I could see him, boosting his disposal, and he only had 2 marks as a winger. Yeah, I think I'd be quite happy to pick Caleb Windsor, and I will be.
Yeah, I'm still. I could pick him. I need to see a nice score in round 1. I think kicking 2 goals obviously boosts your score, so I'm trying not to look at the score. 11 touches isn't great, but he did only have 66% time on ground. I don't know if that's realistic in a full length game. I'm not sure, but I just think there's other forward options around that price or cheaper that I might prefer. So
yeah. You may not need him. I think he's actually just a genuinely very good player. Obviously being a rookie still and a winger, and he could have those kind of Ollie Hollands games that got stuck on a 30 or 40 when he was stuck on a wing of last year. But I think he's just a really, really good player.
Billings did impress me. 17 touches, so he just got a bit more of the ball. I know the role is still. I guess they're trying to find him in space around the half forward for him to kick it inside 50. It's not an amazing role, but I think at his price, which is not very expensive, 250 odd, he could, or 240 odd, I should say, he definitely could go with an 80 average, but more importantly, he's the type of guy I think that can have a spike score and really boost his cash gen. So that was enough for me to lock in Billings. I saw what I needed to see.
I don't think I've been anti-Billings, but I've been trying to find a way not to pick him. I didn't have him at all.
Yeah. Any preseason iteration, I was totally anti-Billings.
Okay. Well, I've had him in and out, but kind of fading to not want him. But yeah, this was enough, and like he's only 200 and something K. If he averages, he had a 90. If he averages 80, even. He should, with some spike scores, he'll make some money. So he's in my wait and see round 0 score bunch of bananas. but
Yeah.
I'm pretty confident to pick him. Bailey Laurie was the other little cash cow I was looking for this one. He had 17 touches, but only got a 58. To be honest, I don't really know what he looks like, so I didn't even notice him. But he's in my wait and see round 0.
Yeah, I think him and Howes as well. Howes down back, both wait and see. I mean, if they come out with good scores, you could pick them. They're both almost based. They're 123 and 125k, so they don't cost much. We'll wait and see and reserve judgment on them. But I'm given with picking Billings, and we've got Gawn, and I guess potentially if you're going down the short route, you're already racking up quite a few players missing in that round. So if you add in Windsor and you add in Bailey Laurie and you add in Howes, you start to get into actual trouble with that best 18. So you'd have to trade a couple of them out before then.
I was going to say a little bit, but I'm more like trying to avoid the primos. I actually think these guys like if it's Lowry and Billings and Windsor, having the early buy could be good because, like you said, they get an extra price cycle. They could be getting like a trade out by their buy anyway.
Yeah, but if they do a spike score behind the buy, you'd have to still trade them probably.
Yeah,
so it's a bit difficult to judge.
Yeah, it is. So yeah, we don't want to load up on them, but I'm not scared of having a few, especially if I plan to trade a few out before their buy.
From the Carlton side, did you see anything Supercoach relevant?
I have a note on here to probably stay away from Orazio Fantasia.
Yes.
He's a very nice price, and he's an experienced body, but he didn't do much at all.
Nothing.
And my other Carlton note was, it sucks we didn't see Zach Williams, so they're my only 2 Carlton relevant notes.
Yeah, I think we might see Zach Williams in round 0, perhaps. Might be limited minutes restrictions. Probably will be heavily, I imagine if they can sub him out, they probably would like to do that.
Yeah. Carlton have like a few potential cash cows that didn't really get any game time, like Binns and Wilson. Like, like they hold on both of those guys, and maybe they become downgrade targets later in the year. But yeah, not for now.
No, I think we wait for that round 0. I don't see myself with any Carlton players going into the season.
No, either. Maybe Z will if he has a good round 0.
Yeah, perhaps. All right, why don't you take us through what you saw in the Sydney-Brisbane game?
Yeah, well, this one, because there was 2 games on at the same time, I didn't watch this one live, and I went back and watched it the next day. And Errol Gould's a freak.
Yes.
And I wish he didn't have an early buy, and I'd think about him. I'm pretty comfortably not starting him because he has the same buy as Dacos, and I'm preferring Dacos of the 2.
And Grundy, if you're going that route.
Yeah, and if you go Grundy, then that's 2. So Errol's amazing. Like I said, that's just my own rule of only having 1 primo on each buy. If people didn't care about that much, I think Errol's incredible. James Jordan is absolutely locked away in my team, as in my forward line. Like, what did he have? He had 115 Supercoach, 119 fantasy, if that's what you're more paying attention to. Like 31 disposals, 9 marks. With Mills, Parker, and Adams all out now, maybe get some more CBAs. I think he just isn't good enough player to be a cash cow even without the CBAs. So
yeah,
I'm big on James Jordan.
So I wasn't super high on him. I was a bit higher once Parker got out. I did put him in my side. And then looking at the game as well, there's no forward premiums really, or minimal, I should say. So we're looking for someone that has some sort of scoring potential. So for him to be able to put up 110 plus, have 31 possessions, and be a mid-pricer in the forward line with a decent role in a side that's going to win many games, just kind of all lines up for us to select him. Yeah. Almost a no-brainer now too.
I agree. I think not a classic guy, but James Rowbottom I think will actually be good again this year. Roberts, I'm on a little bit conflicted in because he had 100 Supercoach, only 65 Dream Team. Did have 18 disposals, but Jake Lloyd and Dane Rampy, I believe, weren't playing. So where does he fit in when those 2 come back into the back line? I'm not sure. Could be a sub risk. So
yep.
Matt Roberts for me is a wait and see round 0 score and roll. Could be a great cash cow if he gets game time though. He's he's a very good scorer when he gets game time.
So the strategy I have when building my team at the moment is putting him on my midfield bench, so that I can downgrade him if I need to people around a similar price. Just because he's got that elevated price. Because if he has this role in round 0, then we're picking him, basically no matter what. So you may as well build your team around him and remove him if he's bad, rather than try and having to find that 30k to bring him in.
Yep. And then the other one for Sydney is Brodie Grundy, who was disappointing by the scoreboard, by the SuperCoach and Dream Team scores. You and I talked about this a couple of weeks ago. I'm trying to find a way to not start Grundy, and I think it's just based on me only wanting one primo in each buy, and I want Dacos.
Yeah,
I've been trying to find a way to not start Grundy and maybe have a different ruckman. And when I saw this score online, because I wasn't watching it, I was like, oh, good, he was crap. He only I can't find him. He had 9 disposals, only 2 marks, 4 tackles. No, only 2 tackles. And I was like, oh, well, that looks like he didn't try. Which is actually my issue with Grundy. I've had Grundy in my team, and I've seen him when he's been like mopey, disinterested Grundy, and that's the guy I really don't want.
Yep.
But when Grundy has a good attitude and he's going hard, he's one of the best players in the league, and you want that guy in your team. So I actually really paid attention to this game, and I really paid attention to his attitude, which is probably a different way of going about it. I didn't actually really care what his score or his stats were. And he passed the attitude eye test for me. He was running hard, trying to chase and tackle guys even though he missed them. He was trying to break through packs with the ball and throw his body around. So I actually saw enough with an average score to actually get me back on the Grundy train. He's still not I've cleared my team, and I've only locked in the locks, and he's not a lock for me right now. But if he has a good attitude in round 0, he'll be in my team, I think.
Yeah, I thought extremely similarly to you. I really desperately didn't want to pick Grundy, just because the buy situation, the early buy, and I was hoping maybe I could put in Sherry or some other ruckman. But he only had 60% time on ground, and he scored 65. You scale that up anyway, and you're looking at a 90-ish. So he's not going to do worse than what he's priced at. It's a really safe selection to just be fine. Hopefully, it's fine with an upside of great. So it's frustrating, but it's frustrating he didn't set the world on fire. But we'll just have to cop it. I think we'll judge in round 0. But I'm leaning to having to build all my teams with him as my R2.
Yeah, I am at the moment, and if he. My ideal world would actually be to have him until round 5, until his buy, and then trade him to English then. But he may not have made enough money, or English still might be 700k, so it might not work. But we'll see the round 0 score. But in terms of that'll give us some good indication of price movement. But more I'll be looking at his attitude and seeing if he's sulking or if he's throwing his shoulders around.
Yep. All right. Heading on to the Brisbane side, McCluggage looks like he's breaking out, perhaps. 25 years old in that category. 162 SuperCoach, 131 Dream Team. Enormous game. Early buy, which probably kills his classic selection. Or does it?
I think McCluggage is also a very open the preseason outside player go goods.
Yeah.
I think he's a beneficiary of that. But also, he is in that age bracket, and like you said, he could absolutely take over. I don't have the stats on top of my head, but I believe he really benefited from Ashcroft going out last year. I think Neil and Dunkley actually didn't really change, but he was the one that went up. And Ashcroft's going to be out a while, so you could. I'm not starting a single premium from that Carlton or Brisbane because they have the round 2 buy, and that just seems like something I don't want to be a part of.
Yeah.
But very, very good draft pick, and he could actually be a classic guy. I'm not interested because of the buy. I'm not even looking at him, but if someone was big on him, why not?
It's kind of annoying this early buy with these Brisbane players, because there's a lot of ones that you'd say are punts, and I would like to take some of them. I think if they didn't have that bye, I could be tempted by McCluggage. I could be. I mean, I probably would pick Coleman, to be honest. His role, I haven't been on Coleman at all in any game. Even in after the finals, I was like, he's just had a good final series and stuff. But his role's legit. He's really good. He scored, 89 and 74% time on ground. He had 91 dream team, so he's not like relying on just kicking it well. He's just really good. If he didn't have the round 2 bye, it might be a different story, but it's unfortunate because I think if he puts out a ton in round 0, he's pretty much, it will be 5 or 6 consecutive really good scores. I think he's the real deal, but I also feel like you can't really pick him with that early bye, and I also feel like there's 10 players in that 105 defender range, and I'm not exactly sure if he's going to be a 105 guy or just in that 100 to 105 range. So he might just be a little worse than everybody else.
I'm probably a little bit cooler on him than you. I think he's like that classic halfback, in a preseason, a little bit elevated. I think he's probably more in the 95 range for the whole season.
Yeah, okay.
But even so, maybe that's enough money. I haven't done the calculation because he's not super expensive. But yeah, early bye kind of kills it. But these Brisbane players won't have had a price movement up until the game after their bye. So, if he has gone huge in round 0 and huge in round 1, you could just buy him after his bye if you've got the money or if you need to.
So, if I look at the rookies, Lohman basically turned up 150k rookie, and Tunstall 123k rookie, scored 59. Are either of these guys in your consideration?
Not at the moment, and it's like a purely job security thing. I spoke to DR on Twitter, and he's a big Brisbane fan, and he loves Kai Lohman, but even he couldn't quite see where the job security is and if he's actually going to be in the team. But if Kai Lohman is going to be in the best 22, and it's probably, if he's not going to be a sub risk, let's say, I don't know, if there's a Link McCarthy or a Dane Zorko injury or something like that, and he's kind of guaranteed, yeah, I'd definitely look at him. And I think Tunstall's a fine enough scorer too if he had the job security. I just don't have much faith in these two, getting a fair bit of game time. Yeah,
I mean, Brisbane's last few players on their best 22 list has always been weak. And, we've seen people like Harry Sharp come in and out of the side. I don't think it takes much for one of these guys to just have a breakout year and cement themselves in the lineup. I think, Dev Robinson isn't in the best 22 at the moment off the top of my head.
No, I don't think he played.
No, and then you still have Jasper Fletcher running around there. Even Jared Lyons might just be the permanent sub guy again this season if they want to use him that way, which might give a lot of these young guys some really good playing time early. Their team's quite unsettled, I think, at the back end. It's going to be interesting to see how they line up with round 0. Unfortunately, this is another one of the picks where I'm currently thinking to just put him in my team, Kai Lohman, and then, if it doesn't go well in round 0, I've got plenty of options around that price to downgrade him to or upgrade him to, depending on some other round 0 players.
Kind of like your theory of picking the slightly more expensive of the option, so that then if they fail, if they're not a pick, then it's easy to go down. It's hard to go up and find.
It's so hard. It's so hard when you've made your team that you like, and you're like, yes, this is my team, and then you're like, well, I really need this rookie that's 20k more, and you're like, but I like all my premiums. So then you're like, what do I do? So just build it that way in the first place.
Not an option because of the buy, but I think Josh Dunkley's in for a big year. I don't know. I just think him coming across last year, a bit like learning the new system, getting his feet settled. I wouldn't be surprised if he's like a top, 5 or 6 mid this year.
Okay.
I know that's just my gut feeling, but I'm not going near him because of his buy.
Fair enough. I mean, it's hard to argue. All right, why don't you want to take us through the GWS Gold Coast game?
All right, I did watch this one live, and I had a lot of feelings in it.
Yes, please take us through your feelings,
especially related to Tom Green.
Yep.
this guy just does things for me, and I tried to jig it where I can get him in my team. And we'll talk about Flanders a bit later, but I wasn't picking any premiums from this game, this round 3 bye if I had Flanders, but I'm fairly off Flanders now, which we'll talk about in a bit, which means I probably could take a premium from the Giants or the Suns who have the round 3 bye. So Tom Green has floated in and out of my team. He's an option. Tuka Miller has also been an option. But like Tom himself is incredible. 31 disposals, a goal, 118 SuperCoach in. Just made it look so easy. But you and I talked about it 2 weeks ago, and I think you had him in your team 2 weeks ago, and apparently I talked you out of it, just with the 2 buys in the first 12 weeks. And now we've kind of swapped.
Yeah, I was thinking about it. The 2 buys, because I also am a big Dawson fanboy, so I was just thinking, look, Dawson's got 0 buys up until his first one, till round 15. And Tom Green has 2 buys. So worst case scenario, I can just trade Dawson to Green if I wanted to. But I feel like Dawson's going to outscore Tom Green with 2 buys and feels a lot better and safer. So I made that swap really quickly after that podcast, after our discussion. It just sucks when you see Tom Green dominate and you're like, man, I had that guy on my side. But you got to keep reminding yourself. I mean, same as Goulden. Like, I would be surprised if after the first 4 weeks, Goulden isn't like in the top 3 highest scoring players. But that just a buy just really kills it. And
a little bit off topic, but I saw the Giants boss is petitioning for round 0 to become a thing full time.
God.
I'm against that, only from a SuperCoach point of view. Kieran Briggs, I would actually be fairly interested in nearly too if he didn't have a bye. I think he's got another level to go. He just looks like a beast.
20 possessions in 66% time on ground. 112 SuperCoach.
And he's playing against Jared Witts, one of the hardest ruckmen in the league, and dominated him.
And it wasn't like Witts was... I mean, these guys had 25 CBAs and 23 CBAs, the most on the ground, the 2 of them. It was like they were doing the proper ruck dance. They weren't holding back. They played pretty much exclusively on each other. Briggs is awesome.
I think he's if you're in a draft, he could be, I don't know, he could outscore Grundy potentially. I don't know if that's a big call or not, but I think Briggs could be better than Grundy from an average this year. It's just that he has the bye and he's a lot more expensive.
He's a lot more expensive than Grundy, but I think he's much better than Grundy. But also, I mean, I think we discussed on the last podcast, Grundy's not really he's weird. He's kind of like an okay, we'll pick him, but it's not a top. It's not English or Marshall who are going to outscore him.
No, if I'm picking Grundy, it's as a cash cow.
Cash cow, yeah.
And to try and make me 120k and score me some good points.
And Briggs isn't a cash cow.
No, because he's over 600k. I'm assuming. I don't have it in front of me.
He's extremely good.
608.
Yeah, he's extremely good. He ticks a lot of the boxes. He's young and I really wouldn't be surprised if he ended up as a 3rd best ruck this year.
Terrific.
But it's hard to pick him with that bye. Unfortunately,
Toby Green was incredible. He had 3 goals, 3 to get that score. But even without that, he just looked amazing. He could be a top 8 or so forward, but he has also done interviews saying that he wants to see the young guys in the midfield go better, and he'll sit up forward more, which turns me off Toby Green a bit. But
so I got a question about that, and I've got a problem with that statement.
So they're in a premiership window?
Well, yes, I do actually think they're in the premiership window, but they have this player, you may have heard of him, this young rookie coming up that they played in their midfield at 23 CBAs, the team high with Briggs, and he got more CBAs than Tom Green, who got 21. This young player, you may have heard of him, called Callum Ward, had 23 CBAs and only 1 clearance. That's terrible value to have in your midfield.
They must just love some things he does. Like, I don't know if it's the hard gruntness, but I thought Water would have been phased out of there 3 years ago, to be honest.
They've had so many good midfielders over the time. The fact that after all of these years in a premiership window, they're still playing Ward as their number one CBA mid. I mean, Canelio is their third CBA mid. All these guys are none of them are spring chickens anymore. Yeah, something's gone a little bit wrong in terms of their midfield mix. I'm not sure what's happened, but it's not right.
Yeah. Anyway, that was a tangent to me kind of saying Toby Green's going to be great. He's going to have some big scores, but I think he'll have some down ones when he does play a lot more forward or doesn't get 3 goals 3.
So they have...
Yep. Yeah, you're going to talk about the buy flip?
No, well, I mean, there's potential for a buy. I just hate booking in the trades.
Oh, yeah, I'm not a buy flipper. Even though this is the first year, I don't think I'm going to be a buy flipper.
I think GWS's team is a little bit confusing to me. They've got like this top end talent that wins them games, and their bottom end is mostly a mix of high potential young guys and guys that you've never even heard of before. We've got Josh Fay is 136k mid, and he had 69 Dream Team off half back. Did you know he had 16 touches? Did you notice him?
Yeah, he was pretty good, and I do notice him because I've been hot on him for a year or two after his huge BFL numbers, and I've just been waiting for him to not be a sub. But I still think he could be a sub risk. They've actually got 4 cash cows that I'm considering, like watching their round 0 score and seeing their role.
Yeah. Harvey Thomas.
Harvey Thomas was great. I noticed him a lot. Like he was kind of that link up between the middle going into forward 50, and I thought he was very impressive.
Brent Daniels got injured, so there's a spot up for grabs.
Yeah, then there's also Jacob Weir and Aaron Cadman, who depend... I think Cadman you could pretty easily have at F8. It'll be a slow burn, but I think he's actually going to make a fair bit of money this year. Where I think is a bit more of a sub risk, but you know, if he gets all 4 of those could nearly be in our team if they guaranteed to get game time.
Thomas is really, really good.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think if you got to watch it. He's really good. He's 117k. He's got forward mid DPP, which we know we love. There's a lot of forward rookies that are potential picks. He's certainly one of them. I am very keen to watch him against the Pies. I mean, that's a tough round 0 matchup for him. And if he manages to pull off, a 60+ score against the Pies, he's serious.
Yeah, he's a great player. The other one, before we go on the Suns, I don't really want to talk about him because I've never been a fan of Harry Himmelberg, but any thoughts from you? There's some people that want to select him.
I think the early buy kills it. He's priced... I don't think he's got that 105 potential. You're paying enough that he kind of needs to be a keeper. The low 90s scores, I think, is about what you're going to get from him. I thought you were going to say Leek Aaliyah because I know people have been picking him.
He hasn't even been on my radar.
No, 123k. I think he'll play, but he's a punch first guy. He's not even a mark first guy. So you're not getting many points. I think you're getting in the 30s and 40s. You're not making much cash there.
Is he a defender eligible?
Yes, yeah.
Whereas when you're comparing to, say, Zach Reed, who likes to take an intercept mark and could get some spike scores from doing that. Yeah.
I'd lean away from Leek Aaliyah, I think.
Yeah.
Moving on to the Suns, I think firstly we have to acknowledge that Sexton is actually really good off the halfback and everybody should be locking him onto their field.
Yeah, as the traders started and everyone's been saying, he's bringing sexy back.
Yep,
and
absolutely.
Yeah, just lock him in. That's nearly one of the easiest picks right now.
I'm very pleased, but also it's quite shocking.
Yeah, I think when it first got mentioned, which was maybe January, I was a bit shocked. But since I've just I don't know. It's become normal to me now. Everyone moving to this half-back role. Every single player wants to play off that line.
Yeah.
And yeah, 11 marks. Like, obviously, that's just the open flowing nature of preseason again. You probably don't expect 11 every game, but he could get 6 or 7 every game and easily average 80 or more.
So now, before I talk about all of the Gold Coast midfielders, I think it's good to recognise the CBA splits of this game. I think it's probably the most important. This is exactly how I think the splits will be throughout the season, by the way. So Witts had 25 CBAs, Anderson had 23, Took Miller had 21, Rowell had 20, Flanders had 9, Humphrey had 7, and then there was a couple of rookies that got given, one or two.
I agree that that's what will happen, but it's also kind of what happened at the end of last year. Like, people saw these amazing Sam Flanders average 106, but he was still only getting 30% CBAs there. He was just getting massive score because he's averaging like 6 marks a game, which is very unsustainable in my mind for a midfielder, especially a midfielder kind of running in off the forward line. So I'm not at all surprised by that split, and I'm not at all surprised. Like, people disappointed in Flanders in this game. I don't think you should be. He played exactly the same role. They just got destroyed by the Giants. It was slippery pre-season game, and he didn't get the marks. So yeah, I'm not that surprised.
So Flanders, I thought, would get a little bit more mid-time than last year, to be honest.
Say 30%.
I thought he'd get about 50.
Yeah.
So I was disappointed from a role perspective. Mm-hmm. So that's enough that I thought, well, I mean, he's not really that cheap. He's only cheap is if you thought he was going to go 100 plus.
Yeah.
But now I have some question marks, and there's the early buy concerns. So I've actually removed him from my side for the first time in this preseason because the role wasn't what I expected. And I've been very hot on Took as usual, and I will admit up front that it's one of my weak points because I seemingly always have Took Miller in my side at some point, or boost him in when he gets injured. That's another thing I love doing. He looked like he was back to his best, in my opinion, and I will nearly certainly be selecting him to start the year.
Yeah. Maybe me and you shouldn't be talking about Took on the same podcast because I feel like we just affirm each other, because I also boosted Took in last year at the same time and he got injured, and I'm a huge Took believer. And just watching this game, like I put him and Green in my side and then thought, no, I can't have them both because of the bye. So I'm still very open to picking one of them. And even looking like, Took didn't do anything unusual that he normally doesn't do when he's going well. He actually only had 2 marks, which is probably low for him, the amount he gets around the ground. So, and I don't have it in front of me, but I think he actually also had about 8 clangers, limiting his score of 116. Could have been a giant one. So, yeah, if you're selecting Took, like, my advice, as we've said, is to only have 1 buy player from each buyer. So if you're still keen on Flanders, you probably can't have Took. But if you're dropping Flanders like you and I have, Took's back in play.
Yeah, he had 6 direct turnovers and then 2 frees against, so 8 clangers total.
Yeah. So yeah, that could have been a 130 or 140 if you didn't do that.
He's good price. I think that's the thing for me is I'm trying to pick those value picks.
Yeah.
In my team, I've got a couple of them in the midfield at the moment, and there's not many that I think can go 110 plus and be season long keepers. Some of the other ones I'm selecting, I'm planning to trade out. But him, and based on what Slack thinks, given in our previous podcast, Slack thought he'd go 109.
Yeah.
I think similar, which is why I want to pick him in my team. And I know he's got the early buy, and I've been not wanting to pick people from that buy. But now that I've removed Flanders, as you said, I have no one else in that buy. I think given the value he presents, it might be worthwhile doing that. And I should say as well, when I've been redoing my team and thinking about how I manage this buy situation, a lot of it's been picking the best cash cows I can. I think I've got Hustleweight. Well, I know I do because I can see my team. I got Hustleweight at M9, which some people would have him on the field. And I think having him there to jump in when I need him in those buy rounds might also be valuable. So that's kind of how I'm leaning, structuring my side. I mean, it's still early days, but that's kind of what's going through my mind.
Quick question on that. Do you think that that's like, say, the non-buy rounds, having Hustwaite at M9, do you think you're wasting his, not necessarily his cash, but his scoring potential? Like, he could be putting up 80s on your bench that you're not kind of getting just so that he covers you in a couple of rounds?
Absolutely. It's a significant risk, but we'll have to judge that as we go in the season. You can always trade out someone, but it does make me lean towards hopefully putting Harvey Thomas as my M9 and being able to, I guess, use DPP to ensure I have a buy player in my midfield at all the buy rounds, so I can, I guess, loophole between my 3 bench spots or 2 bench spots or whatever it is, so I can always take advantage in 4 of the first 6 rounds and only really need to gamble on missing 2 of those big Hustwaite scores.
That's fair, because I had the same thought initially. I thought, I'll just have Hustwaite M9 and then I could pick all the buy players I want because he'll cover them.
Yeah.
But then I thought, oh no, but actually no, I want Hustwaite on field when it's like as much as possible. Because I think he's a really good scorer.
Well, we do have quite a few buy rookies, and that might help us get some of these other rookies onto the field.
Yeah.
So it's just something I need to play around and tweak when I'm building my side to try and ensure that he's not stuck permanently on the bench every single week, because that, I think, wouldn't be great. Because I'm sure after watching him multiple times now that he's going to have some really good games.
Yeah, I like him. And we'll talk about him, I think, in Hawthorn. But
absolutely,
the last 2 players I was probably going to mention for Gold Coast was Bodie Yulin. People were keen on. He didn't really do much. I don't think he's really a pick anymore.
He was good in 24% time on ground. He had 8 touches. He just isn't, the job security's not there.
Yeah. And then the other one didn't have a big score because he only had 1 mark and 2 tackles. But I think Noah Anderson could probably go to another gear this year. He averaged 104 last year. I could see him like at a 109 maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe not quite breaking into that kind of top tier of midfielders, but a little bit of value, but probably not enough value. I think he's good.
He's a good draft pick, I think. Gold Coast have the easiest draw this year, something that we probably should mention, and that makes me lean more towards Took. I know if you need another reason, but it also will help Anderson to achieve, I guess, higher highs, because I think he's I'm not a downhill skier, but he's some of his big games were beating up on the worst teams, and they play quite a few of those this year.
All right, should we go to the next game?
Absolutely. Lead us off.
All right, let's start with Geelong. And I've got 2 players that I've locked in my team from that game.
Okay, locked. That's
you
can't change once you've say this now. It's in.
And one is actually not that good a scorer, but Tom Stewart, I think, was absolutely still fine. I think Geelong are going to be pretty bad this year, and he's going to get a lot of chip arounds to keep it in possession or a lot of kick-ins. I know there was a little bit of, some people were talking about whether Max Holmes going back there kind of takes possessions away from Stewart, but I think they play quite different roles and score in different ways. And with Sicily going down, I just, like, not going down, but not being as popular, I guess. I'm still hot on Tom Stewart. I didn't see anything that made me go away from him.
No, I'm with you.
And then my other lock, and maybe a little premature because he only played 60% game time or something, but is Jai Clark. When he was on the field, he was incredible. And I think I'm happy to, put him on a mid bench and just see how he goes in the first little bit. I think they do want to get game time into him. He might be like, remembering Caleb Sarong's rookie years, or first few years, they kind of massage him a bit, but I feel like he can still score enough in 70% game time.
Absolutely. He looks real. Both those players looks really good. I think what surprises me a little is, like, I don't think Duncan is particularly. I think he's really dropped off what he used to be. I'm not sure how many games he should realistically play, but Holmes playing kind of a CBA / halfback I mean, it's a Nick Dacos role. I don't know how else to describe it. It was actually hilarious that both of these teams had a Nick Dacos role.
They were doing it to each other.
Yeah.
And neither one even tried to stop the other one.
It is the preseason, so you're not going to do that. I wonder if this has a chain effect of, one, now there's a new AFL position, which is the Nick Dacos role, where you get CBAs, but then you also play off halfback, and then you never defend. You always attack. Maybe that will cause teams to have to play a cooler, like, a half-forward tagger.
Yeah.
And maybe that's a role that's going to be invented to stop this type of behaviour, because it was incredibly effective. I mean, Holmes had 29 touches and a goal, and Nick Martin had 28 touches and 2 goals.
Yeah, they were both just doing what they wanted. And Holmes did his you might have the stats there, in quite low game time.
65%.
Yeah, he had 108 SuperCoach. He went off he got tackled and kind of his ankle under him, and so they just took him out of the game as a precaution. He and Danger, I think, after the game said he'll be fine. But, he won the AFL Grand Final sprint last year, and he was showing that off in the game. He'd just take it, put it under his wing, and run 30 metres and kick it 50 metres. And yeah, he was just doing what he wanted, Max Holmes. He's in my heavy consideration.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he's not in my team because I would rather the Essendon guy doing the same thing. And actually, while we're talking about Max Holmes, I think he's less of a chance to get defender DPP than, say, Nick Martin or Carl Amon. And that's just because he did start defence a lot, but he also went on the wing a bit. And his comments and Danger post-game and I think mid-half-time were talking about how versatile he is and how he's going to play all around the ground throughout the year. Danger even said he's kind of their weapon that will throw all around. So the fact that Max... I think Max is less likely to get DPP, but because he's cheaper, you could just use him as a cash cow, like a Brody Grundy type cash cow.
Yeah, so I kept my eye on Holmes a lot last year because in my RDT, where I came 4th, he was a POD for me that I brought in after round 2. So he was in my side for a while, and I love him. I think he's an incredible AFL footballer. But I'm not sure from a fantasy perspective or SuperCoach perspective as well. He's not an incredible user of the ball. Nick Martin's much better ball in hand than Holmes is. So I feel comfortable that Nick Martin can go 105 because he's a good ball user. And I don't have that same... I'm not as comfortable with Holmes going 105. I think Holmes will improve, no doubt about it. But you're going to be stuck having to trade him out, I think, at a stage. So he's not going to be a top 10 defender. So it's a bit of a no man's land pick for me.
Yeah, watching this game, I put them both in my team, and then I deleted my team and said that's a bit silly. Hold on. So I'm considering him. He's still on my maybe list, but I don't think he'll make my team. But we did see some good things.
Yeah. So before we move on to the Dons, Oliver Dempsey scored 93 SuperCoach.
He was incredible. I was watching that game and I don't know if I knew what he looked like, and I just kept seeing him bob up, especially on the lead, taking these contested marks while someone was trying to spoil him as kind of an undersized forward. He was a lovely player.
Yeah.
He just has 2 good forwards to come into that team in Rowan and Henry that could easily push him out. If he's playing round 1, he could easily be a pick. I'm just not sure if he does.
If he plays round 1 and he plays how he played in this game, he'll play every game the whole year.
Yeah, he was awesome.
I think we kind of got trapped with Chandler last season where we were like, okay, well, we're not going to pick him because he's going to not have a good game and then he's going to get dropped. But then he had 6 incredible games in a row and he made 200K.
I think if Dempsey's named when Rowan and Henry are back, which I'm not sure if they're back for round 1. I don't actually know what their issues are. But yeah, well, if Dempsey's round name 1, I think you can just pick him and just see how he goes.
Yes, he's in that Kai Lohmann price range.
Yeah, and we have these fix-up trades for a reason. Like you get 1 or 2 rounds in, and you actually see which rookie you really need, and he might have been dropped by then. He might just be having negative 50 break even. He's ready to go. So
something at least interesting that between, we've mentioned now probably a couple more forward rookies than people realized were options.
Yeah,
and we think of, okay, we've stuffed mid prices in our forward line all the way to, could be F4 or F5 or whatever it may be. But there's a whole forward line that you can fill with rookies that might be better than all the mid prices in terms of cash gen. There's a lot more options available and team structures available than we've seen. I think you could totally make a viable team that has 6 premium defenders, 5 premium defenders, 4 premium defenders, even 3 premium defenders, and you could really pack out your midfield or go thin in the midfield and the forward line as well. You could have all rookies and 1 or 2 mid prices. And
where we haven't really spend our money. We're going to go into the year with like $1 million in the bank.
English.
I'm heavily considering that. I made a team just before that I was actually really happy with that had 300k in the bank. So that could just be English.
I mean, we got to spend it somewhere. We're going to get to a stage where you pick all the value players, and then you're like, okay, well now I have 200-300k left over. I should probably get a top of the end. I know they're not value, but it saves me a trade. Type picks. I think that's how we're going to structure a lot of our sides.
I think whenever we have a podcast with a discussion actually about structure, and it's going to be really interesting because there's like 3 midfielders that I'm really, really comfortable having on field, like rookies this is. There's not really many defender rookies that I'm ready to have on field, and forwards, there probably could be a few, but also there's a lot of mid prices, so there's quite a few options, I think.
It's wild. I love it.
Yeah.
Absolutely love it.
All right, let's go on to the best team in the league.
All right, Collingwood. Wait, we've already done this game.
No, Darcy Parish.
All right, so did the Dons, following on from our conversation 2 weeks ago, did the Dons feel like a non-bottom 4 side to you?
The first half, first 3 quarters, they were good, and then they just put on the brakes. No, I think they're going to be... I think our forward line's going to be pretty bad, so we're going to struggle to score a bit. I think we'll win quite a few clearances. I think our midfield's actually solid, but no, I don't think they're that good.
Sorry for rubbing it in. I think watching this game, everyone should have Nick Martin, right?
Yeah, absolutely. He had that Nick Dacos. Slack was calling him half seagull, half pig, and trying to get AI to make images of half a seagull, half a pig. So yeah, that's him. I think
so. You're like a Pegasus.
Yeah, so it was trying to be like a pig's body with a seagull's head and wings.
Okay. And Pegasus, I love it.
Yeah, that Nick Pegasus Martin. That's what we're calling him. 28 disposals, 11 marks. Only had 1 tackle, but you don't really expect that from that role. He was just doing what he wanted. Like, he started pretty much always at half back, so I'm pretty confident in him getting to EPP. But he barely played there. He would just wander up to the wing and wander up to the forward line, and with awesome kicks into the 50 or goal assists, or even kick a couple himself. Even with Jordan Ridley going down injured, I think it even means he's going to play. He's just going to be locked back there. So, yeah, Nick Martin came into my side, and he's in my lock them in category.
Yeah, no, I was happy, very happy watching him, and having put him in before just confirmed my thoughts, which is excellent. Yeah. Parish had a really good game, 34 disposals and a goal. I mean, he is someone that has quite a POD. I think he's in like 4 or 5% of teams. Do you think he has what it takes to go to the next level of scoring?
This one is really baffling me a bit. Like, when we talked 2 weeks ago, you were surprised because I said I had Parish in my team.
Yeah.
So I was on him early. It might be funny to say, but this game nearly turned me off him a little bit.
Okay.
In the fact that we had 5 marks, but I think he only had like 1 mark at half time and 1 tackle for the whole game. So I think that's always been a bit of an issue for him. Like, people say he's kind of a one-way offensive runner.
Yeah.
I think his disposal efficiency has also been criticised, and I think he went over 80% this game for 34 disposals. So And I think I did say I wouldn't be surprised to see him improving that because we're working with a coach for that. But the one tackle and the one mark up until three-quarter time, I think it was, that actually is nearly enough to turn me off and kind of stop me from saying I think he can be a top mid. And he's never really been a monster at those stats. So, I don't know. I was watching him dominate, thinking yes, yes, yes. But then, I don't know. I think he's limited because he doesn't get that many tackles or marks compared to, say, a Bond.
That post-game clarity.
Yep.
So,
so I think tackles, like most of the best 22 mids, or the top mids average 6.5 tackles. He only averages 4. So I think that's a real, like a glaring, capped at around the 110, maybe 111, 12, but can't get to 115.
Yeah. I mean, anyone that's getting 30-plus touches is always going to score pretty well, especially if they're scaling on the line in these tight games. I think he's still a good pick, but I'm not sure if he's... No, you know what? I think he's a good pick. I'm going to... Yeah. That's where I'm going to end that sentence. I think he's solid.
Especially for the 600k. He's in that kind of same mark as... for me, he's in exactly the same mark as Rosie and Brayshaw in terms of... I could see any...
Better than Brayshaw.
Yeah, I think any of them could go to 115 if everything went right for them, but they also could kind of just stay at 109.
Alrighty, so the only other Don that really, outside of Zach Reed, who I think most of us have locked away at D8, scored 80 as a 123k rookie, so I don't know if much discussion needs to be had there. The other Don that I guess people might have potentially overlooked is Sardis. 85 Dream Team, 65 Supercoach, 24 disposals. Probably, I'd say, locked onto a wing role at the moment. There's only 240k forward mid. There's, I guess, spike game potential when you're a natural accumulator. I just don't know if he's better than Billings at the same price point.
I think, well, I don't know if you remember, but when Team Picker opened in December, he was he was very, very highly picked.
Yeah, he was.
And then he just absolutely dropped off a cliff because people weren't interested. And I like, as a Bombers fan, I watched him throughout his rookie. I actually watched a lot of AFL games to watch him last year, and he is an absolute incredible accumulator. But he's one of the biggest butchers of the footy I've ever seen. one of the worst kicks right now. So I think his clangers and his disposal efficiency are just going to limit him in a lot of games. Like this game, 85 fantasy versus 65 Supercoach probably speaks to that, unless he gave away a lot of frees or something. I just being a rookie as well in the variants, and we've got a lot of good wingmen in, like, if Durham goes back out there, or maybe they put Cox. I think Martin's not there anymore. Dersma as well. I actually thought if Sardis was playing, he'd kind of be like half forward blank, so I'm not really sure. I think I'm more secure in like Billings because of his role.
Yeah. All right. We'll move on to the Port game. Port versus Dockers. Lots of Supercoach intrigue. The two teams with the round 13 bye playing each other.
Yeah, I love these teams.
All right. Well, we'll start with Port. I think the major discussion point from this game was Butters being subbed out in the opening minutes of the game, really, with an ankle knock. Has that stopped you from picking him?
I did have him in my lock them in category, and I've now put him into my premiums to consider category, which means I've cooled a little bit. Not even so much that, but Rosie said after the game that Butters actually did this 2 weeks ago, and it's a bit of an ongoing thing that he re-aggravated. That made me a little bit jittery.
Yeah.
But Ken and Butters have both come out and said, no, I'll be right. And if it was round one, I would have just got a jab and kept playing. But also, I think Sarong's injury last year was just a lingering ankle that kind of really slowed him down at the end of the year. So it can impact people. I just still think he's a 115 plus player and one of the best midfield scorers this year. So I think I'll still start with him if he's named 1-1.
I very reactively took him out of my side. I love him and I agree. I think he's a 115 type guy. And he has huge upside, potentially one of the best in the game. He's really injury prone. I know you like, yeah, he played a lot of games last year, but he played a lot of games injured as well. This is what he's going to do, though. He's going to get injured, and then he's going to play out the games injured, and then have a poor score. And sure, I can pick him up at some other stage, but he already got injured in the preseason game. If it is an ankle, which limited Sarong, is it just mean the first couple of weeks is going to just be taking it a bit easy and working himself into the season, and then I can pick him up the same as last year, where round 8 he just like exploded. Maybe I do that instead.
There's been a few questions as well because they play West Coast and North in the first couple of rounds. Does he just kind of ease back into it and play a bit more forward and then kind of rest and play low game time because they're winning by 100? That's being questioned in Slack. I'm not sure. Yeah,
it's a tough one. It's all guesswork, right? At this stage, if I was the coach and we were winning by 60 points, I'd start playing Butters in the forward line a bit to protect him, the half forward, and get players like Horn Francis and stuff through the middle, or some of the younger guys. It is probably going to be fine for people that want to take that risk, but given the other risks I am already taking in my side, I mean, if we just look at a general team with half of these mid prices and Fife, and even in the midfield, people such as Parrish, LDU, there's quite a selection of injury prone players that we're taking. So our risk, I guess overall, our risk profile in our sides are quite high this year, I think, maybe comparatively to previous years. Yeah. So I started to feel a little uncomfortable when I was looking at my midfield. At the stage, I had all of Parrish, LDU, and Butters, and Fife. And I'm looking at it. I mean, Hayden Young has been injury prone in the past. I'm not sure if he's fully over that yet, but Tom Stewart misses a couple games every year. I'm just looking at the side and I'm like, what am I doing? Like, I want guys that are going to play every game. So I went specifically out of my way to start de-risking some of the spots, like choosing Dawson.
I think that's fair.
And so I actually did go Butters to Dawson. That was my shift to try and de-risk. Fife's been out and in and out and in. I still don't know where I'm going to land with that one. But I took out Parrish as well for a similar reason. It's just trying to make sure the premiums that I'm paying the 600k plus for are actually going to last me the year.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fine. Butters is a hard one because I was so hot on him and like one of my first picked, but we can't ignore those injury risks and all the playing through the slightly injury. Yeah, I think I'll wait to see maybe round 0 scores to see if there's any. Before I finally make up my team, that might be kind of the last decision I make. Do I go him or do I go someone around his price? I'm not sure. I still want him, and I think we'll all want him at some stage. But I wouldn't blame anyone for fading just because of the risk.
Alrighty, so from the port side, there's a man that I know you've been quite hot on, and I was quite hot on last week. Maybe take us through your thought process.
Which man? There's a few men I'm hot on in this team.
Okay. Well, I was talking about Rosie. I know you were pretty hot on him in the chat at the time of the game. And I mean, I guess we could have been talking about Wines.
Houston, I'm also very hot on.
Houston,
I'll talk about Rosie because I think there's this spot on my team that's like I said, that 600k that's either Parrish or Rosie, and I think within 30 seconds of the Port game I'd change it to Rosie. He just looks so good. But no, statistically, I did put a little video record a little 8-minute video that I put into Slack if anyone wants to watch that, but it was about looking at some of Jaden Poposky's stats in terms of he quantifies whether players score their points at stoppages or in transition. I like the two ways to score. And generally, the people that regress are the players that score really highly at stoppages but aren't that good in transition. Like, that's really hard to keep up year to year. So there's guys like Sarong and Rowell and Cripps and stuff that are at risk of that. But then he looks at players that are really good transition scorers that are going to play full-time midfield and can up their stoppage numbers. And they're the ones that he often picks as breakouts, and there's been some good data on that in the last few years. And Rosie was one of those ones that absolutely jumped out at me. Like, his transition scoring is incredible. And his stoppage scoring is still pretty good, but I think it's even got another 5 to 10 points on that.
Yeah.
So yeah, Rosie, I'm pretty big on. After I did that little research, I actually took Sarong out and put Rosie in, kind of before these practice matches, and then this game where Sarong didn't do that much, although he's all right in the end, and Rosie did a lot, kind of validated that a bit for me. But it was his tackling that really made me go, oh nah, like, this guy is an outside scorer that can do it in transition, but he's in there having a crack, and he's a good tackler as well. So yeah, Connor Rosie's in my team, and I don't see a single actually, he's in my lock them in category.
Oh wow, that's huge.
Yeah,
that's a big call for, I guess, someone that wasn't a full blown premium mid last year.
Yeah, I think he's one of the ones that goes from 109 to, it might only be to the 113 to be an M8, but I think he could do that. Yeah,
I mean, I'm not going to say anything against it, given I had those thoughts last week. All right, if we jump to Wines, it's a bit hard to take away from this game too much, given Butters went down with injury early, but what we can see is Wines had the most CBAs out of anybody, and his role looks good. Everything we've been told looks true in the preseason, that Wines will be a full-blown CBA mid. He scored 130. He had 27 touches and a goal. I don't really know what more we needed to see from him. Even with Butters, even if that drops down to 105, I would take it. It's only 460. I have had Butters, sorry, not Butters. I mean, could be, but I've had Wines for most of the preseason, and this really helped lock it in for me.
Yeah, I was really keen on a team that had the 3 good midfield rookies on field, being like Huswaite, Sanders, and McKercher, which doesn't really leave a spot for Wines, but I feel like I'm going to have to make one for him and push Huswaite to the bench. He's just, I actually don't think Butters going down change his CBAs that much. It'd probably like let Horn Francis and Mead and stuff get in there more.
Absolutely.
I think Wines was going to be the big dog anyway, and I don't know. I don't like picking people in the 400-ish K range, but Wines and Martin are just doing exactly what was advertised, and why not?
Yep. And Houston, on the exact same hand, looks phenomenal.
Yeah, he did exactly what he did in the second half of last year, and I think he's a great pick. I think Port just want to get it in his hands coming out of 50 or like through the middle of the ground, kicking into the forward 50.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm big on Dan Houston.
So people have chosen Mead because he scored 112 and he's 199k rookie. Powell Pepper's out for the first, 3-4 weeks. Do you think Mead is a realistic option?
To be honest, I don't know much about Mead and the Port rotation. I tried to kind of ask JB about this in Slack, and like as a big Port fan, and he was saying, my vibe was that he wasn't sure either. Sorry if that's wrong, JB. You can clarify in Slack. But yeah, I think there's a bit of confusion about where Mead slots in and what he does, because he also had a really good, the match sim beforehand, whoever they played. I think he was actually really good in that too. So 21 disposals and 8 marks and 5 tackles. Like, that's all really nice. If he does play one and he looks like he's going to stay in that team, like, he's pretty expensive. I think he's nearly 200k. So I don't know, you'd probably want him on field for that price, but he's shown he can score. I just don't know enough about their rotation to comment on him, I guess.
Yeah. I would guess that the Butters injury definitely helped Mead. And Powell Pepper being out is going to help. He's probably going to have a good first couple of weeks. Then it's just going to be up to him to be able to stay in the side. I don't know if I will select him or not. I'm leaning in the unlikely bucket, but we'll judge closer towards the season, I think, with that one.
Yeah.
And the last one before we move on, because a lot of Port players, Burgoyne had 79 Dream Team, 67 SuperCoach. 20 touches, only 63% time on ground. He had 36 Dream Team in the last quarter, 8 possessions. He really looks good until about halftime, and then I noticed he barely played in the third quarter. His time on ground dipped at one point to, I think it was like 58 or 56% time on ground, which I asked JB at the time, and I think they're just trying things and spreading some time on ground for some of the other players at the moment. But I'm hoping in a full game, if he can get 70% time on ground, I think he's a legitimate rookie option at 179k defender playing on the wing.
Yeah, I've had him in my team throughout various points of the preseason. I'm actually nearly thinking we might not need him now. Like if we've got Caulfield, Reed, Gibcus, and even Phillips, if you want, all quite a bit cheaper, we just might not need to pay up for him, especially for a winger that could be hot and could be cold.
Could he be better than Gibcus?
Oh, yeah. He could definitely score better than Gibcus
They're only
in time.
30k apart.
Yeah, and doesn't have an early buy. Could be an option. I think I'd be more, like if I was picking one of them to be on field, I'd be more comfortable with Burgoyne on field, I think. But, yeah, we might not need him. Also, like, Mead and Burgoyne, I guess... No, I think Burgoyne is kind of locked into their team. I don't think that's an issue too much. But someone like Mead could be one of those, correctional trades that we have to do in round 2 or 3 to either get him in or get him out for someone that's going well.
Yeah. Alrighty.
I'll just say, if Jason Horne-Francis had forward status, I reckon I'd pick him.
Yes. I mean, I don't know if... I mean, yeah, we don't really know where the top 8 forward needs to average this year, but he's definitely going to be in that range. He might get it throughout the year.
I think I just like him as well.
Yeah. Alrighty. Fremantle side. Now, Hayden Young had 114 Dream Team, 115 Supercoach, 26 disposals, 2 goals, 3, 75% time on ground, was their leading CBA player for the day. So why am I concerned?
Well, I think some people are concerned because he actually had 2 other shots at goal that missed. So he actually had 7 shots at goal and kind of just got to 115. So I think that's why I've seen some people concerned, but I'm not. I'm very happy with that. It's the 26 disposals and the 7 tackles that give me confidence.
So I was watching the game and I was like, he's not winning enough of the ball. Mm-hmm. He had until 3/4 time. Admittedly, I turned it off. I missed that last quarter, but he was on 15 touches at 3/4 time. He had 11. I'm looking here. He said 2 behinds, 11 disposals, 3 tackles, 3 clearances, all in the last quarter, and that's ramped up his score. But I guess on a counterpoint is he can do that. Like that is a legitimate part of him being a high CBA mid for Fremantle. Like they're quarters that will happen. That doesn't need to be an outlier. So he's in my side, and I just don't know enough about how I feel about him yet. I'm going to have to go back and forwards for the rest of the preseason and see if I want to lock him away. I'm just unsure, but it wasn't too negative.
I think it'd be like a risky one to take on just because it's high ownership, and I don't really like to factor in ownership when picking or not picking players. But I feel like he is one that's just because everyone has him. If he kind of goes off and you don't, you're kind of stuck there a little bit, maybe.
Yeah. No, you're right. It is a bit difficult. 525k. It's a great price, but at the same time, there's no bailout options on that price. So
yeah, where are you going to go?
I guess everyone will be in the same boat, so it shouldn't be too much of an issue.
Lockie Whitfield after his buy.
No, that's actually a really good call. I'm definitely more likely to start him, but it wasn't without concern.
I think I had similar thoughts actually. At watching it, I wasn't that impressed, but then seeing the 26 and 7, I was impressed.
Tackling's great. If he tackles, the floor is going to be high, right?
I'd like a few more than 2 marks, but
I think there's upside. There's definite more upside in that pick. Realistically, this could have been like a 140 game.
Yeah, if he kicked his goals and got a couple more marks.
So I was it made me more happy with this. Like, it was a positive overall.
You didn't sound like that 5 minutes ago.
No, I just I think I had question marks, and until 3/4 time I was like, I don't really know. And then he exploded, and I'm like, well, I guess this is something that he's capable of doing.
Yeah.
So, he had 20 CBAs. I think the most important thing was he had 20, Fife had 19, Sarong had 19, Brayshaw had 13.
Yeah.
So they ran a really tight 4, which I expected, and I just wanted Young to be in the top 2. I mean, he basically was.
Yeah.
As long as Brayshaw is the 4th person, then Young should be fine.
Yeah, I think it's going to be Sarong and Young that are going to be the main 2 when we look at it at the end of the season, in terms of CBA percentage.
And I think Sarong had 29 disposals. It's a tough matchup. I think he's fine, a fine pick.
I didn't actually notice it that much, but there are a few people saying he's also getting a bit of attention from Willem Drew as well, which limited him a bit.
He's just young, good, improving. I think there's no major concerns to me. And Brayshaw, I think, is a non-selection, given he got pushed out.
There are concerns there.
What about Fife?
Fife has not been in my team all pre-season, and he still isn't. And it's mainly the injury. Like, I'm just kind of a little bit adverse to starting these kind of Fife and Yo kind of injury players. So that's my reason for not starting him. He did have quite a few, he had 26 disposals, but most of them are handballs, and he's 72. If he averages 72 with a few spike games, it's probably enough. But yeah, I don't know. I think I'm wary of injuries, and also Freo and Fife have both said we will be managing him throughout games and throughout the season, and he will sit quite a bit, which makes me think he's a vest risk as well, which would just stunt any potential cash gen. So yeah, Fife isn't in my team, and he hasn't been, and I don't think he will be.
So Fife last week had 20 touches in the first half, I think it was, and had a huge SuperCoach game. I think he had like a 75-point first half. And then this week, I think it was 16 touches in the first half, and another good SuperCoach score. But then he couldn't do much. The problem is very similar to Dow, if we go back to Richmond, is that he just handballs and doesn't do anything else.
At least it's SuperCoach, you get extra points for like a contested possession. Like if you're picking it up when someone else is trying to pick it up, you get points for that, just for the action. Or like a contested knock-on or stuff, he'll get points for that. But
would you pick Dow if he was in the forward line?
Yes. Yeah.
Because it's kind of similar. They're not that far from price. They're 30k apart.
No, I think their scoring and everything's very similar, but it's the injury risk and the sub risk installing the cash gen risk that scares me off of Fife. It's not his scoring. I think he'll score plenty. I just think he could be subbed out at half time when they're getting beaten by 80, which could happen as well.
He's been in and out of my team today and back in.
Yeah.
So I'm all over the place with the Fife pick. I find it really hard to judge how much risk I want to take on. Do I want to take on Fife, a Brownlow medalist was playing? He got forward status because they tried to protect his body, and now they've gone like, nah, we're just going to full-time midfield him. Like, that's pretty rare. I feel like the upside is right there. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if he scored like a 125.
He could do that.
Just had like a monster game. But then again, I also wouldn't be surprised if he scored like 45.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult.
And I know a lot of people say, like, don't trade. Like, if you're against starting someone because they're an injury risk, definitely don't trade them in because that just compounds it. But if Fife is there sitting there with a -3 back even because he's gone 125, I'll just buy him and hope he makes me some cash.
Yeah, I find it hard to judge. I think I'm leaning towards starting him, and then if he's bad, I'll go down to one of the rookies. But we could be having this conversation in an hour, and he's out of my team again.
Well, I guess he's one of the more expensive of, like, say him or the Jordan or the Billings.
Yes.
So you could start him, and if he fails, it's a pretty easy pivot to one of them as well.
Luke Ryan still is going under the radar.
Yeah.
Just another 116 in the back line. Like,
I talked him down a little bit in our podcast 2 weeks ago, but I I'm happy to retract that. He looks fine.
I mean, yeah, he had 7 kick-ins for the game. Jordan Clark had 4. I expect that ratio to continue. He just does the right things to score Supercoach points every game. He's probably a better pick than, I don't know, if it just feels it's like such an unsexy pick to pay $611K for Luke Ryan.
Yeah, I think he's just kind of just where he is. I do think he's got a bit of fluctuation in him, and then that he could go down to like 560 at some stage, and you can get him cheaper like he did last year.
Yeah.
But also then he could go up. But only 4 marks for Luke Ryan, which is actually quite low, so he could have even been bigger.
He could have. He absolutely could have been bigger. Alrighty. Anyone else in that game, or should we move on? Not many left now.
Just Jeremy Sharp, I think.
Yes.
Very popular rookie cash cow. Got stuck on a wing. Well, he's always going to be on a wing. But we know that wingers can be very up and down and hot and cold with their scoring. I think I stopped watching this at 3/4 time. And I had barely seen Sharp. I think he was on like 20 Supercoach at 3/4 time, and I was ready to throw him in the bin. Then I think he had like a 30-point Supercoach last quarter and
kicked a goal
and kind of saved his score, which is good that he can do that. I would like to not need to pick him, I think, and I probably don't need to because I think there's going to be some good options. But I think he's got jobs, although there are still a couple of guys to come back in. Yeah, I'm not sure where I sit with Jeremy, and I think there's probably better options.
Yeah. All right. No, I'm with you. All right, we'll jump into the Adelaide versus West Coast game. I'm not exactly sure why I decided to torture myself and watch this whole thing.
Oh, I'm glad you did, because I got sick of it and turned it off.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, I really like the Crows, so they have a lot of options I'm interested in. So I was like, okay, I'll give it a watch. The biggest thing for me is it's so hard to read against West Coast because they're so bad. Like, I know the scoreboard was 10 goals, but honestly, it could have been 6 goals in the first 5 minutes and just completely game over.
Yeah.
They Crows put their foot off the brakes. I mean, oh no, West Coast, it's just terrible watching. I looked at it, and at a stage I took out Harley Reid because I was like, I don't want to have to sit through West Coast games, and then I realized I'm going to have to watch my players that play against West Coast. So I may as well pick Reid again. But look, there's not many options on the West Coast side. Again, Yo was good, but not so good that it requires a selection. I mean, I love Yo, 96 points, 16 disposals. The role is correct.
9 tackles is nice.
No, he looks good, and the role is correct. The problem is West Coast are so bad.
Yeah.
That it's not West Coast of 5 years ago, where they're competitive. And I just feel like all of the scoring is completely limited by their inability to win more than 1,400 points of the Supercoach pie.
Yeah.
It's dire, and it makes me not want to select them. And I don't think I can pick Yo because of that. I could be convinced not to pick Harley Reid. His role was much better this week than last week. He was mostly, I guess, CBAs and then standing off halfback.
Yeah.
He scored 88. I think he's not as good as our last couple number 1 picks in terms of Supercoach scoring potential.
No.
He's probably going to average 65, 70, and he will have some really bad games, but he's got forward status. So I honestly don't think he's a must select.
No, I think that's fair. I've got him in, and I think he'll stay in my team. But at 200k, like, I could, if I needed 50k, I could take him down to someone else and not be too worried about it. I really enjoyed what he did in this game. Like, there are a lot of those kind of, whoa, look at that guy glimpses.
Yes, that's true.
Which aren't necessarily Supercoach scoring glimpses, but I feel like I just want to own him just for that ride. And, so 5 years later I can go, oh, I remember when Harley Reid was in my team.
Yeah, if I don't select him, I have no reason to watch West Coast games, which is honestly very appealing at this point. The funniest part of the game was Livingston being subbed into the game, and I'm like, oh my god, our R3 Livingston might get a chance, and he came in and he gave away a free, and he lost a hit out, and he ended the day with -4 Supercoach and got subbed out immediately.
He's going to go down from 102k, which is not possible.
Yeah, that was pretty comical. But honestly, stay away from West Coast players in drafting everything. There's just
I was
not good.
There's been a few drafts I've been keen on Duggan and Witherden just because I think it'll be back there a lot, and I thought they'd be chipping it around, but even they didn't look good.
No, they couldn't. It was disastrous. And Adelaide are the highest scoring fantasy team as well, in general. So there was a huge disparity. There was like 450 points difference between Adelaide and West Coast, which is monster in a preseason game. I think the key takeaways, and there's quite a few. Adelaide is Rankin is the fourth mid with Laird and Dawson and Crouch.
Are you buying Isaac Rankin shares?
I think he's the real deal. I don't think I'm starting him because he's still 460k, so he's not cheap. But he's legit. He scored 109 Dream Team, 138 SuperCoach in 59% time on ground.
Would you? Do you think he'll be kind of that top 6 forward? We don't know what they'll average, but let's say it's like 95.
I think out of all of the options that are not, I think he's probably as good of a chance as Flanders and probably better than all the others around that price point.
Yep.
Even more than that price point. I think he's just the best chance. Yeah,
I think because I didn't watch this game, I didn't quite get the Rankin infatuation, but I know a lot of people are, so awesome.
It's just the midfield time. Like, I know he kicked 4 goals, so I'm trying to not let that impact the score. But he played 59% time on ground, and when you're playing in the midfield, your floor is generally increased. And he got, while he was on field, he got half the CBA. So he's a 50% CBA mid now, going from an 8% CBA mid.
Yeah, that's
so. We're talking about someone that's significantly going to raise his floor. I'm quite confident, or at least quietly confident, that he's going to be a top 6 forward. But that being said, the price isn't kind enough that it demands you having to jump on at the beginning of the season. I feel like you just wait for a stinker. He's going to be tagged. If I was looking at a midfield and I had to choose someone to tag, it's probably going to be him because Dawson just goes forward and kicks bags anyway. And Rankin you can probably put on like a Hardwick type or something like that. He's really good. I don't need to keep going on about him.
From what you told me, I feel like if he's 400k and you think he could average 95, shouldn't you start him?
He's 460.
Yeah, so shouldn't you start him if you think you're going to average 95?
460 though. That's not that cheap. That's only about 40k underpriced. 40, 50k. That's not enough value.
Yeah, okay. So you reckon we'll be able to buy him at 500k later in the year?
I'll probably be able to buy him at 460.
Yeah.
After a stinker, it probably goes back down to that range. But I definitely, if you wanted to start him, I wouldn't be talking you out of him if you just wanted to plonk away a premium. That would be acceptable. I think it's better than Baker that people were picking in that same spot.
All right. My main takeaway from this game is that I'm going to be captaining every single ruckman that comes up against West Coast.
Yep. Riley O'Brien was enormous.
He was, and he is a flat track bully. Like in my captain articles last year, I often recommend him as like a little bit of a pod captain when he came up against a team with a poor ruckman. He can do this.
Yeah.
But it kind of just indicates that they are, whoever's playing West Coast ruckman are going to go well, and English plays them really early. Grundy plays them really early. I think Soldo also has them early, so there could be some big scores in there.
All right. Well, we've got to talk about this midfield.
This is my other takeaway because I'm even more confused about their midfield than I was coming into the game.
So the one thing that is for certain is Dawson's the number one guy.
Okay.
He was essentially every time he was on the field, he was in the CBA. He didn't miss any when he was on the field. So he's absolutely the number one guy, no questions asked. 29 disposals and 66% time on ground. I know his SuperCoach was poor because he gave away some early possessions, so he had bad scaling when the game was on the line. But he did absolutely nothing that prevented me from picking him, and I was very happy that I shifted Butters to him after this game because he just looks unbelievable.
Okay.
Then the question marks start coming after that because Laird was good without being sensational. He was just fine.
Yeah.
There was only one play. I know in the week they're like, Laird might start up forward. There was one play in the entire day that he actually was ahead of the ball. Every other time he was just in the midfield. So I don't really know why they wanted to make that comment. They didn't even try it in the game.
Yeah.
I feel like that may have just even been circumstance. It's not a thing, but it doesn't feel like we're going to get the 120 average from Laird just because we have to see Rankin's getting 50% CBAs because he adds something different. Crouch is just too much of an accumulator, and he went at 100% efficiency.
Right, that's not
sustainable. He had 59% time on ground, 59%, and he got 23 touches. Like, he's an absolute pig.
114 SuperCoach in 59% game time.
He's an absolute SuperCoach pig. And look, his role was good, but he was playing midfield bench.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it was literally, I'm either in the CBAs, racking it up, no matter where I am, or I'm straight to the bench. And that were the two roles. And you could totally pick him if he's going to go back to like a 70, 80% time on ground player. But I'm kind of worried because why did they need to necessarily limit his game time against the Eagles? I mean, Dawson had 66%, Rankin had 59%. It wasn't like Crouch was the sole person being limited. Like it was very confusing how they wanted to shift around their midfield mix. And I still am not 100% clear what that looks like in round one because Berry dominated.
He was so good. And remember that rookie year he came out and he was just a tackling machine and he scored all his Queensland tackles. And then they were talking him up about how he's now also became an accumulator. But then they played him in the sample all year. Well, I feel like he did both in this game. He was tackling and accumulating and he looked great. I just awesome. Don't understand their midfield.
So I guess my concern is that I don't think Berry was meant to. I think this was a product of how well he was playing. I don't think this was like a pre-game role that he was meant to get this much midfield time. He just was really, really good early on, and I think it was just like a flow-on effect.
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually looking at the quarter-by-quarter CBA breakdown. In quarter one, Berry had 1 CBA, and at quarter 2 he had 1 CBA, and then he had 6 in quarter 3 and 3 in quarter 4. And I think that's pretty much at halftime he was best on ground. Well, Riley O'Brien was, but everyone was talking about Berry. And I think they just rolled with it. They were like, let's just see what he can do because he was playing incredibly well. Like, fending off people, bursting through packs, kicking goals. He was great. And my greater concern after watching this game is you can't leave Berry out of the team after this performance. Like, you absolutely cannot.
This muddies the waters.
So if I went into round one or as a Crows supporter and I thought, okay, Berry's not, we got Crouch, it's fine. Saligo's still good. We just don't necessarily need to play Berry. He might be a sub or just, in case someone else is get injured. I've watched this game and thought, no, he needs to be playing AFL football. In which case, how does that leave the side? Because I don't really want to play him off the half-forward flank when he's got this super ceiling capabilities.
Yeah, well, that comment makes me want to avoid all Crows midfielders, even including Dawson, until I am very certain of what's happening.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just very confident watching the game that Dawson's the number one guy and he's not ever getting shuffled by anybody. It's a mix. It's going to be a mixture of Crouch and Laird and Rankin, I guess. And to an extent, anyone else they use like Pedler. Pedler was not very good. He was quite bad. I don't think he's going to get given any CBAs anymore. I think all those will be snapped up by Berry. And Saligo came on as a sub and got 13 touches in under half a game. So he was also very good. I just think I have been very high on Matt Crouch, to no one's surprise. I mentioned in the December every podcast. And I actually took him out despite scoring 114 SuperCoach because Berry was so good. And I think there's a genuine risk that if Crouch has one bad game and Berry happens to have a good game, Crouch could be out.
Yeah, I can see that.
And Berry might be the third guy in the midfield from now on. This could be the Berry breakout season.
And I've heard quite a few people like putting Crouch, Wines, Martin, and Amon in the same kind of basket and saying like pick two of them is kind of like what a lot of people are saying. So, and I think Crouch isn't in the best two of those options.
Yeah, that's exactly how I've structured my side at the moment. I mean, look, the thing is, Crouch could also just do really well because he didn't put 100% efficiency. It's not like Crouch had a bad game.
No, he was good when he played.
I mean, he could also do 110s and be fine for the first 6 weeks. It's just the risk for me is that Berry demands to be selected.
Could you pick Sam Berry in your Supercoach team?
He's only 220k.
Yeah, could you do it?
I think you absolutely could. But again, you're not going to play West Coast every week. So can he do it? If he had round 0 and I could watch him, I'd feel so much more comfortable. But I think it could be a McKercher or a Reed bailout if they start poorly and he starts incredibly hot.
Yeah, he could be a correctional kind of action. I like comparing him to Thompson Dow. I think is pretty similar in terms of like Dow has the better role and the more confirmed role, but I think Berry's a much better Supercoach scorer. So
this seems exciting for Crows fans watching Berry.
Yeah, he's a gun, and I think we thought we liked him in his rookie year and thought this guy's great, but then he got relegated. But yeah, I don't want to start him, and a part of that is because I don't really need a 200k midfielder when I think there's 3 great rookies and a lot of other underpriced mids.
Yeah.
So I just don't need to even entertain it. But yeah, if he starts well and Sanders doesn't for some reason, then it could be an easy switch or something.
Absolutely. But anyway, it was an interesting game. The only real huge no-no was Hinge looked dreadful, and I would be staying far, far away from Hinge.
Yeah, I talked him up in the off-season, and I'm not going to retract it yet. He did have 18 disposals. He got a bit of it, but he butchered it.
Incredibly bad.
Yep.
It was not like he may have racked it up at the end of the game, but it was a dismal performance. That if you were watching the game, you're like, nah, we're picking him for a breakout. Well, you just pick it. He got all of his touches in one quarter. In the third quarter, he had 10.
Yeah, right.
So he pretty much had no touches for the rest of the game.
Are there any cash cows from Adelaide we can look at? I don't know if there are.
I don't think there's any Supercoach relevance outside of those players.
All right. Nighttime game.
We're nearly there. Hawks versus Dogs. I also got to watch this one.
Yep.
I'm not sure if you managed to watch your boy Newcomb play.
I did, and I loved what I saw. He gave me the Darcy Parish feels, in that he absolutely accumulated, but he barely got any tackles, and I was just he actually picked it up in the third quarter and got a lot of marks. He ended up with 9 marks, which is actually quite huge for him. But like 3 tackles for Newcomb just doesn't do it for me. But the 37 disposals absolutely does. 125 Supercoach. He was also having a couple of shots at goal. I'm a little bit conflicted because I think for my team it's him or Took is kind of the spot I'm weighing him up at. And he doesn't have the bye, whereas Took does, so that gives him the nod. But like Took's done 110 plus before, Newcomb hasn't. I am not sure where I've landed yet. Maybe it depends on Took's round 0 score, I'm not sure.
And as someone who's done a lot of research into Newcomb, tell me he had one outlier 170 plus game, by far the most in his career, and who did they play?
The Bulldogs. He loves playing them.
He just loves the Bulldogs.
Yeah. So I don't think 37 disposals is necessarily going to continue, but I could see him getting like high 20s every week. The marks are a little bit up. It's the tackles that just keep really annoying me because he came in the league as an incredible tackler. He broke the record for tackles in his debut game. And since then, he's just dropped off so much in the tackle department. And you probably will do that when you're going to hunt the footy more. But, yeah, I think it's exactly the same averages as Parish, where I said the best midfielders, like the top 8 midfielders, average 6.5 tackles a game. Newcomb only averages 4.3, which is just crazy considering that's what he came into the league as.
That is nuts.
So, yeah, like I said, Newcomb gave me the parish feels. Like, I love the disposals, and I love what you did with it, but just go tackle someone, please, and then I'll pick you.
Yeah. I think watching Newcomb and Took this week, I think Took just had I feel a lot better with that performance.
I think because we've seen Took do it before, there's a bit of, like, reinforced love there. We've seen him do it before, and he looked to the eye like he was doing what he's done in the past. We've never seen Newcomb be a 110 scorer. I still think he could pretty close to get there, but yeah, it's the tackles. It's just limiting him a bit, I think. But it could come.
So Hawks are an interesting side because they seem to be competitive until the opponent puts a couple of goals on in a row, and then they just fall to pieces. And they did that a lot last year, where they were like, until they were goal for goal with their side, and then the opponent would put on 3 in a row, and then that 3 in a row became 10 in a row. And they did it again against the Bulldogs here, but it really limits that SuperCoach pie in general, and it makes me worried about any of their major selections. I think everyone from Eamon, I don't think he's going to go 105 plus. I think he's more likely in that 95 to 100 range.
Yeah, I'm happy to say that.
A defender. He doesn't quite do enough to get into that next range.
He had a nice half-back distributing role, but it wasn't the proper Dacos Martin totally free and do what you want role.
No, it's just normal half-back, like Jaden Short, but worse.
Yeah,
because you have other players down there like Sicily.
He did only have 4 marks, which in a half-back role could go up and could boost his score a bit. But also 24 kicks is massive. I don't see him sustaining that.
No, it's just, and he still scored 96.
Yeah.
I don't think the upside for 105 particularly is there. Connor McDonald was really good, but I don't think he's going to be a top 6 forward, but it's a good eye test. Same as Mackenzie. Looked really good in the eye test, but at 285k as a forward, I don't think he's going to match, Fife and James Jordan's output. So it's a pass. D'Ambrosio was okay without being extremely good.
Yeah, he's nice and cheap, so a 77 could kind of get it done each week. But also he was on that wing and then also thrown around a bit. He's not a halfback flanker because Amon is.
No,
Amon and Impey
he should make 100k.
Yeah. I'm kind of viewing him as, I want Zach Williams in my team because I think he's got good upside. But if Zach Williams is a no-go, I could pivot to D'Ambrosio.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you can do that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't talk anyone off it. I think it's just it's an okay pick. Hustleweight looks amazing.
Yeah, I think everyone should lock this guy in. I think he's really good. He's really benefiting from no Will Day, getting a lot of those CBAs. But I think when Day comes back, from what I've heard from Hawks fans, they are big on this guy even when Day comes back.
Well, Warple was playing half forward when Hustleweight was in the midfield. Yeah. And that's a much better decision because Hustleweight can hit a target and Warple can't. So if I was a Hawks supporter or coach, that's the move that I would make there. Sicily had to play quite deep. I mean, it is matchup dependent, and they were trying to play in a style in which would free him up, and they did play Ethan Phillips and they did play Frost, but they just came under a barrage of attack. I think Dogs were 2 goals 12 at a point. Yeah. And even with that ball coming down, Sicily couldn't intercept, and I don't know, it just feels like he scored 52. It's enough of a warning sign that, hey, maybe we should just back off a bit, see where the chips fall, and pick him up for a bit cheaper during the season. I don't think I'd be surprised if he's coming out with back-to-back 160s. Sicily's
prone to dropping to 550, and I'll just happily get him then, I think.
I think we're all on that same boat there. So Ethan Phillips, 102k defender. I think it was his first game, and I thought he was fine.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, he scored 56. He had 10 touches. When you're picking a 102k defender and people are choosing between him and Howes and Toby Pink, I'd just get the cheapest guy. I mean, I think they have to play him. They don't really have any choices.
I think Hawks have to play him. I don't know if I have to play him. I think I have enough defender rookies. if I like really need the 20k to, I don't know, make something magical happen, I could take Caulfield or Reed down to him kind of with no issues if he was staying on the bench.
Yep.
But I don't know if we need him, but you could select him. That's fine.
If you're picking 4 rookies,
I think I'd be
choosing Gipkus, Caulfield, Reed, and Phillips. As my 4.
That means you got to field 2 of those, which gives me the ick.
I know that early buy, 4 of the 6. Please be my savior. So Watson, the magician for Hawks, 189k forward rookie, didn't do enough. He's just a small forward.
I think him and like we're going to probably see with Dersma today. We're recording this kind of as the Kangaroos game's going, so we don't actually know what's happening. But I think him and Dersma are just kind of those small forwards that aren't really going to get enough disposals or to make any money. I think before we go on to Bulldogs, one comment, you're potentially a little bit harsh on Cam McKenzie. I think 271k forward, he could be that option in kind of that 5-4 Billings or Harms if you liked. I'm not going to do it because he was never like on my radar before this game, and I kind of don't really want to put anyone in that hasn't been on my radar. But actually in this game, like eye test wise, I actually thought he was better than Harms and he was better than Fife in their game. He was everywhere. He was in the back line. He was in the forward line. I'm not going to pick him purely based on my rule of if I weren't considering you before this game. But there were quite a few people quite excited and were already keen on him. So I'm not going to say don't select him because I think he could make you a bit of money. But the Hawks also have so many midfielders and so many good young talent. Where are they all going to kind of fit in? And will it be like Josh Ward dominates one game and then Cam McKenzie does the other one and then Connor McDonald does another?
That's exactly what I think will happen.
Yeah, it could.
Yeah, even when Day comes back and he sometimes gets rotated to the back line, everything kind of goes everywhere.
Yeah.
And so for Hawthorn, I only feel comfortable if you're a premium or you're a cheap rookie. It's hard to pick a mid-pricer because even paying 180k for McKenzie last year, he had almost back-to-back tons to start the year, and they put him on a wing and he was scoring 30s and 40s.
He's a very good player and he's going to be very good, but so is 6 of their guys. Before we go to Bulldogs, I want to get your thoughts on Joe Newcomb because I've talked him up a lot, and you've been my thought of you've been like, I want this guy to go good, but I just don't quite see it. Is that still where you are, or were you convinced in this one?
No, I watch all the Hawks games as my wife's a Hawthorn supporter, and I don't think he has all the tools yet to go 110 plus. Yep. I feel like he's in that 105 to 110 range.
Yep.
I want him to do really well and take his game to the next level, but he's not. This one he had a lot of the ball, but then you said that the tackles weren't there. I just don't think he's really an accumulator type. I don't think he's got that in him. I think he's more of the Jack Steele type, who's not an accumulator either. And I know Jack Steele's had some really good scores, but it's on the back of the tackles.
Yeah.
So if Newcomb... It's actually hilarious what you said in that he came to the league as this tackle beast, but then he hasn't averaged a lot since.
Yeah.
If he can find that again, and then absolutely all on board. But I just doubt that it's going to be right now. And at 545k, I feel like you'll just buy him if he does become that tackle beast.
Yeah, potentially a bit like Sarong last year. We didn't start with him, but then when we saw him going really, really well, we jumped on. Although I guess the issue with not starting is that you're not prioritising those guys often. You'll be prioritising a Merritt that's dropped or a Sicily that's dropped, and you might miss them. But yeah, it's really hard to be a 28 disposal and 7 tackle guy, and Steele and Tuke and stuff have done it in the past, whereas that's kind of what Jai needs to do. And I don't know, I reckon it's in him at some stage. I was ready to see even 6 tackles this game would have made me a bit hotter.
Ironically, a guy that pretty much does that is on the other team in Liberatore.
Yes.
Libba looks fantastic. He's just their grunt. He gets the ball, he hunts it, he handballs it out to Bont. or to Treloar for the kick most of the time. And there were so many just direct English to Libba clearances.
Yes.
It was absurd. I mean, I watched the game and I'm like, how's Libba not in my side? And then I went and looked at his stats, and Libba's stats are incredibly impressive. I mean, after round 10 last year, he averaged 126 if you include the knock.
Yeah.
And it didn't change that much all the way up to round 8. I just stopped going back. But he is probably 5 points underpriced, and he could be 10 points underpriced. And I know he's 30-year-old, and it's hard to think like these 30-year-olds have that breakout because he did it last year, and I'm like, could he actually go better? And I know it was against Hawthorn, so it's a bit hard to judge. But watching him, I'm like, oh my God, this guy's a good footballer. Like, Libba is a ridiculous footballer. Truly, like, phenomenal. And then you have that 1-2 punch with Bontempelli, and I don't understand how Bulldogs didn't make finals. What is Bevo doing?
My thoughts on Libba are like 30 disposals amazing, 7 tackles amazing, 1 mark, and like he doesn't score in the outside.
Yeah.
Like I was talking about before, the little video I did on Jaden Poposki's stats, stoppage scoring versus transition scoring. Libba was like the poster child of insane stoppage scoring and horrible transition scoring.
Yeah.
And that pretty much always, like 17 out of 18 players in the last 2 years that have been in his kind of profile have regressed from a fantasy point of view. And like Jaden only has these numbers from a fantasy or dream team kind of scoring. So I've actually got pegged Libba as someone that's pegged to regress quite a bit in fantasy. But in SuperCoach, because you get so many extra points for like the contested stuff and the, picking the ball up off the ground and tapping it on, and it's really easier to score SuperCoach stoppage points, I think, when you're contested beats.
Yeah.
So maybe he actually does stay where he is, or even go up a little bit just because of the SuperCoach scoring system. I think he's I don't want to start him because of that research, and I definitely think he's going to regress in fantasy. But
I mean, if he regresses in fantasy, you're kind of predicting a regression in SuperCoach as well.
Yeah, I guess. It's just the scoring format difference that could actually just keep him up there. I do think Libba potentially goes backwards in SuperCoach. I don't know if that's hot take or not. It's hard to say that after seeing this game, though.
I mean, I think the first time I saw him was in JB's opening team, and I was like, oh, that's a weird selection. And then I thought about it, and I was like, oh, that's pretty good. But I stopped. Like, I never was like, okay, well, he's going to be any sort of value, and, if he could keep it up or not keep it up.
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking this 30-year-old guy, like, surely he's not getting better again on top of his previous unbelievable year.
Yeah.
But he smashed the eye test. Like, he was so incredibly good. And then I went, and it made me go and look at his scores from last season. Because I'm like, how? I'm like, that guy can play football. Let me go check his scores. And then I went to his back end of the year. It was 124 in the last round. He missed a game because he got injured, and then the injury program, so I'm still reading backwards. And then he went 159, 133, 126, 149. Then 75 against Collingwood where we tagged him or put some pressure on him. And then 121. 115, 139, 122. I'm like, that's incredible.
Yeah, I didn't realise they were that monstrous.
The ceiling and consistency.
So, yeah, after this game, I'm not going to talk anyone out of starting him. I don't want to because just statistically, I think history shows there could be a regression. But yeah,
he could be in those 3 out of 20.
Yeah, he could be. Yeah, there are always some outliers.
It was actually ridiculous how well he was playing. I thought, I was like, I don't understand, this guy's on another level of football. And then Bontempelli was slow. He was on 42 at half time, and I didn't think he looked that good, really.
Well, when you're saying that Hawks like stay with a team and then just a few goals leads to an avalanche, like Bont did all that. He absolutely triggered that, and he was the reason. And I don't know what his third quarter SuperCoach would have been, but it would have been huge.
He scored in the second half 93 points.
Yeah.
In the half. So he finished with 135. And then I was like, oh, right, that's why I'm selecting Bont. That that's the reason right there. Like he took the game to another level, even though it's a practice match. You're like, okay, Bont, you don't need to do this, but he did it anyway. He just put them to the sword by himself. He lifted the whole team on his shoulders and is like, all right, I got you guys, and just won them the game. It was a joke. And it's funny seeing Bont, English, and Libba. They scored 134, 135, and 136. And all of them look phenomenal. English looked so good, and there wasn't really that split with Lob that everyone was talking about. Like English looked like English from last year.
Yeah.
All these guys are incredible.
Yeah, they are. And like English he was matched up with Reeves, who's generally a pretty hard ruckman to win hitouts against. Like Reeves is quite good in the hitouts. And Reeves did win more hitouts than English, so like he still scored that, which he does all the time. Like hitouts aren't really English's main weapon. So even against Reeves, they would do a 134. I've got a question. If you had, I think I've seen your team, so I know the answer, but if you had a choice of like starting Bont or starting English, which way are you going?
I mean, look, I have Bont at the moment, and I'm very happy with having Bont.
Yeah.
But English did his chances no harm, and Grundy, if he puts out a poor round 0, and I'm going to have to take a loss on either, in terms of cash value, on either Bont or English. If Grundy scores a stinker and I don't like what I see, I think I'm just going to go with English.
Yep, I'm also considering it as well.
English is phenomenal. I mean, it's just crazy that you don't see ruckman do what he does. Like, they're kicking it, they're having like an exit from the 50, and they're trying to like go up the middle, and they're trying to do pinpoint, and you just see English like running through the center circle, leading up as like a short hit up target, and then they use him in the chain, and instead of handballing it, he kicks it. I'm like, why is this ruckman kicking the football? They're not handballing it to somebody. I'm like, he's just involved in all their chains. Like he's another player, like another runner on the field. But it's like watching Grundy when he was getting 20 touches every game.
Yeah.
And English missed 2 goals that were like 30 metres out that he could have converted. So this was a 150-plus game.
Yeah, right.
Gone begging.
I will want him.
I mean, he's just so good. It's actually quite ridiculous. I think all 3 are viable. It's insane. And they all have around 15 buy, which is good. There's quite a few players I need to discuss from this game. One of them that we don't need to discuss is Sanders. He is a Jet, as much as a Jet. Last time I said, if you haven't watched him play, you don't realize how much of a Jet this guy is. And he had 30 possessions. He's so good.
And I think he had most of them in the first and the fourth. Like, I think he actually had quite a quiet patch in the middle and still managed 30.
He's so good.
I think I've tongue-in-cheek said a few times that like Sanders and McKercher, these Tassie boys, are going to be so good for the Tassie team in 2028.
I mean, Sanders he didn't even get that many CBAs, and he still got 30. So think about that for a second. I'm checking his CBAs right now. He had 5.
I didn't actually see the CBA stats for the Bulldogs. I'd be interested in what they were.
Yeah, so Libba had 26, Treloar had 24, English had 23, Bont had 20, Harms had 9, Lob had 7, and Sanders had 5.
All right.
So
it's still the big 4, really.
It's still the big ones. Libba had 13 clearances.
That's huge.
It was ridiculous. But Sanders he's not a CBA. He's not like a pure CBA mid, and he still gets 30 touches. Like, he's the absolute ball magnet, just a gun. Don't even think about it. Lock him in. Harms, I know he scored 74 and he had 17 touches and a goal. I was a little bit disappointed. I wanted to see more.
I think I was also disappointed eye test wise.
Yeah.
But I don't really know why. Because 17 touches, 3 marks, 5 tackles and a goal, that's very good. And at only 200 and something K.
Yeah. I mean, look, Hawks are meant to be an easier team. There was a lot of really high scores in this game on the SuperCoach side, on the dog side, and he managed to avoid being one of them. It's just, I don't think he was super impressive. He had 1 possession in the third quarter, and then like 5 in the last when the game was over. I still like him as a pick, and I think he makes his money. But I just question if you save 100k and you were to get Lohmann or Dempsey or someone, could you still make 150k from them as well? And then you've had that 100k to invest in your starting team elsewhere.
I think that's not a bad idea. Harms has been in my team all pre-season because I liked what he did at Melbourne, and I thought he was going to come across as like one of their big kind of defensive mids. But yeah, when you can probably get a similar price from, and I actually like haven't been watching the Saints game, but it looks like Darcy Wilson is going crazy. So like he could even be an option or something like that. Yeah, there could be a rookie that does nearly just as well for cheaper.
Yeah.
Although he does have like the job security and kind of the floor, I think, that a lot of rookies don't have.
Yeah, I don't know. It definitely left a bad taste in my mouth. I think I'll have to strongly review where I sit on that one.
Yeah.
But anyway, if we look at another player, 160k forward, McNeil. So McNeil kicked 4 goals from 12 touches roughly in the first scratch match, and was very good. And then in this first half, he played as an offensive winger, starting on the wing, running forward, and I think it was on 62 at halftime or something. He was incredible. Like McNeil passed all of the eye tests. But they subbed Caleb Daniel on, who went to the wing, and McNeil went to forward pocket and barely touched it after that. He had like 4 disposals after that, something like that. So he finished on 98, which obviously sounds really good, but my concern is if Daniel's in the best 22, does McNeil just a forward pocket, and then that's not good. Really need Daniel not to be named, I think, for the McNeil pick to work.
Yeah, I kind of agree, and I want the McNeil pick to work because he was incredible yesterday. Well, for the first half of the game, I loved him. He was
so good.
And the 160k being able to kind of, I don't know if you'd be comfortable with him on field. You might be. I'd like. Yeah, you probably just got to wait to see what they do with Daniel.
I think Caulfield didn't really do too much wrong. He scored 51. I think we're probably getting a 50-60 sort of guy.
I actually was quite disappointed with him in general. I think he junked it up in the last to even get there. I just wasn't really seeing him getting around and getting the marks, but I'm also not too worried because he has huge scoring pedigree from when he was at the Saints. Like he can find the pill. So yeah, I wasn't really impressed with him yesterday, but I'm still happy having him on field.
Yeah, and the one that was actually surprised me how comfortable he looked was Buku Kamas.
Yeah.
He's 123k forward rookie. He was playing on Chol, so he was playing essentially at fullback. He scored 59. He played 96% time on ground, which is important. He only had 10 touches, but that included 8 marks. He's a good kick, which is pretty rare for a fullback. He's a bit undersized. I think he's like 193 or something like that. And he would have to hold out Keith from returning.
Yep.
But I think he might. I really think that Keith's slow and lumbering, and the way this modern age game is working, it's a lot about pace. I think Buku provides enough of that intercept marking and enough of that pace that he will fit in well. I mean, you've got to remember that the other fullback, who was it? I can't remember. Oh, well, points mute. It's good to have a bit of speed in their back line. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's like a good selection for them. Oh, it's Liam Jones. That's what I was thinking.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Liam Jones is not the picture of speed. I think it's a good combo. Otherwise, it is really, really slow with both of them. So I'm leaning towards starting him.
Yep. Cool. I think I'll get him like if I need that price. Although no, if I need that price, I'll probably get Aaron Cadman. If I need 130k, 120k rookies in my forward line, I'll get them both, but I don't think we'll need to. I think there's a lot of good rookie forwards. Yeah, Buku's an option.
I'm scared of Cadman. I guess I'm scared
I think he's going to have a pretty good year. Like, he was roaming right up to the middle of the ground, like that old kind of Jeremy Cameron at Giants role, and kind of kicking it into the 50 a lot as well. Like, he'll have some down scores, but I think he'll be pretty all right.
Right. All right. No, it's interesting.
Although I do have a bias because I was big on him at the start of last year, and I think I said to my mate that he's going to play every game, and he definitely didn't. So there might be some Cadman bias for me.
Alrighty, we're going to jump into the final game of the round, Saints versus North. I mean, we started recording this at quarter time.
Yeah.
So we haven't seen the rest of the game. So pulling up the scores now.
Yeah.
And
so not
too many surprises.
We haven't got any eye test for this from you and I. We're literally just going off scores and stats. So things we say could be wrong. But Riley Bonner again, he dominated in their other game as well. Like, what does he cost?
He's 284, isn't he, off the top of my head?
184k, what position is he?
Midfielder. How much is he?
Was
that close?
Yeah, 284k midfielder.
Well,
I think we need to lock him in. No, I don't really. But
he has scored like 120 plus twice.
Yeah, I don't know. That's going to give me some consideration. I wasn't. Although he's in the Cam Mackenzie, in that I was never thinking about him, so I'd have to be breaking my rule to think about him.
So hear me out. What we did see, right, like literally as we were pressing record, was Webster absolutely knock Simpkin into 2025.
Yeah.
And I'm going to guess that's a 5+ week suspension. It looks really bad. And if that's the case, I mean, Bonner's definitely in the side. Sinclair comes in with no changes to this team. And then does Sinclair perhaps not have to play off the halfback? Can he play in the more midfield role? And I mean, this is fan fiction at this point. And Bonner just remain as a distributor.
Yeah, definitely could happen. He had 30 disposals. Like, they obviously wanted it in his hands. Like, this isn't, obviously we haven't watched the game, but what's with all these 200k midfielders going on so well? I don't need any of them.
Oh, it's absurd.
Make them forward status.
Absurd. It's actually crazy.
If Riley Bonner was forward status, I'd snaffle him up, I think.
Oh, absolutely. I think we're kind of stuck. I don't know how I'd structure my side with him in it, to be honest.
Yeah. Because if you do, you've got to push Sanders to the bench or something, which I just don't want to do.
Would never do that. Yeah, look, it's something to think about. I don't have the answer right now, but we'll wait and see. Looking at some of the other numbers here, Jack Steele, 21 possessions. I'm not super happy.
9 tackles is nice.
9 tackles is nice, but I'm not really questioning his tackle. I'm questioning his disposals.
Yeah.
If he's not a big ball winner, and I don't know if he was cruising around in the first quarter, I don't think he was particularly good eye test wise. I don't know if he just kept that up, and I don't know if he's in first gear or if he's just not that good.
We don't have time on ground stats either. He could have played half the game.
I can see 79%.
Okay, that's up there then.
I don't. It might not be enough for me to think that Steele's back. I really need to see that 25 plus disposals.
Well, when
I'm worried.
You're essentially comparing him versus Took, even though Took has a bye.
Took looks amazing.
Or Newcomb, who's a 37 disposal beast.
It's hard for me to pick Steele. It's very difficult.
I've been anti-Steele all year, but that's only because there's some good options just above or below him that I think are better.
So the other big one here is Schoenmaker, 117k defensive rookie. It looks like Howard is out. I don't know what injury it is. I just see the little cross on fan footy. Schoenmaker's 194 centimetres, so he could potentially play deeper if needed. And also Webster's out now. So Schoenmaker should survive. I think he's got a couple of weeks up to 5, which is enough to make some money. Another good rookie for the back line. Maybe we don't need Gipkus.
Yeah, potentially. 11 marks is nice. Like, it's pre-season, that's going to be elevated. But Saints don't mind chipping it around, and like Bonner and Schoenmaker could be guys that kind of benefit from that.
So we'll have to keep an eye on that one.
Yeah.
If we jump to the North Melbourne side, Zach Fisher, my F1.
Holy hell. I've just seen the score. My mate just messaged me and said, I need Fisher in my team. So I'm guessing he's referring to 36 disposals and 6 marks.
Well, he had 20 in the first half of the match last week before being subbed. And now he's had 21 in the first half again and finished with 36. This is Aaron Hall's role. And you know I love Aaron Hall. So
yes, you're a sucker.
I'm taking Zach Fisher into the season, and it's not even close.
I am too.
And look, Sheasel has 32 touches. I think...
I'd like to re-watch this and see what his role was, actually, because like if he's off half-back and mid, like I'm locking Sheasel in. And I think he probably would have had to been to get 32 touches.
Well, he definitely started the game off the halfback.
Yeah.
I don't think he was like bursting through the middle. He had 23 uncontested possessions, so I'm going to say most of it was from the halfback. I think if I'm picking, he took 5 kickouts as well, and he played on from all 5. That's pretty good. I think you can safely pick Fisher and Sheasel from this game. Looking at some of the other rookies, Lazaro, 180k forward. He was getting CBAs when I was watching in the first quarter. Quite a few. He started in the first CBA.
Are the CBA stats up there?
They're not, no.
Yeah, they take a while to load.
Yeah, no, they're not. Oh, actually, no. They've just, while talking, they have been put up. So it looks like LDU and Wardlaw and Sherry all had 19. Will Phillips had 14. Powell had 9. And Lazaro had 8.
Okay.
So that, to me, looks like once Will Phillips was put on, Powell got pushed out, which is what happened.
Yep.
So Powell is probably a non-selection.
Yeah, because he's quite a bit more expensive as well. I think he's in the 300s.
Yeah, 312. I think he's done. What the hell happened to LDU?
Yeah, you just said he had the most CBAs. He got 14 touches and 30. I see he gave away 6 free kicks. Doesn't help. I'm going to have to rewatch this game because he was one of my first picks. I think I'd still be keen to select him, but that's without seeing the game. I don't know what happened.
Jack Steele it looks like maybe he got tagged. That is absurd.
That's a horrible flaw if that's what happens when you get tagged.
Am I scared? Maybe. Will I probably pick him? Maybe. My concern with North Melbourne as a whole is I hate selecting teams that get done by multiple, bags of goals, and the Supercoach pie shrinks. And do I really want to pick Sherry, Fisher, Sheasel, LDU, McKercher?
I was fine too before this game.
No, I don't know if I want. I have concerns about that. So I don't know. I need to think.
I'm gonna rewatch the game before I actually make an LDU call because I don't know.
Yeah.
There's one thing I'm looking at here. How the hell did Toby Pink only have 1 kick and 1 mark and no tackles, and get 28 Dream Team and 70 Supercoach?
What?
Yeah. According to fan info, anyway. Whatever app I'm on.
It says 70 Supercoach. I'm looking at it.
So he had 11 handballs, but how does one get to 70 despite 28 fan? Yeah, he must have had 1,000 spoils anyway. That's interesting. I'm sure Slack will tell us if he was good or not.
This is pretty funny.
Yeah.
He had 9 intercept possessions.
Okay.
And he had 4 spoils.
So all of his intercept
doesn't seem
possessions,
like much, does he?
So all of his intercept possessions must have been like ground grubbers that he picked up off the intercept and then handballed it off. Or something.
I don't know what to tell you.
Because he didn't get any marks. Anyway.
So speaking of marks, though, Big and Ewan, 123k forward rookie, has come out with 6 marks, 15 disposals, and 87 Supercoach points.
That's pretty nice. I thought it was going to be between Ewan and Pink, like having to fight for that last role. So, that's what I was told anyway. So, I don't know if they both play in round 1. I'm not sure, but that's nice.
I mean, we've got Core that has to come back for one of them.
Yeah.
But that's a good game.
Yeah, like the 6 marks, and then he kicked 8 of them. That's nice.
And he had 2 kick-ins.
Bailey Scott has done some nice things, it looks like, in this game. I know he was like a you wouldn't pick, like, he's too expensive. He's 423k mid only in SuperCoach. You wouldn't pick him, but there were a lot of draft people that snuck him in, and I think that's an awesome pick. I want to talk about Tristan Xerri because I haven't watched the game.
I have to.
I haven't watched the game, so I'd like to see the eye test more. But my concern, like, I knew he would get a lot of disposals and then hit. I knew he'd get a lot of hit outs and he'd destroy Marshall in this hit out battle, which Marshall had 12 hit outs, he had 31. Like, Tristan Xerri is a very good tap ruckman. He wins a lot of taps. My concern is he doesn't get many disposals, he doesn't get many marks, and he only had 1 mark. He only had 4 kicks, so that really hurts him. Like, he did have 12 handballs. I mean, that's kind of nice, but I don't want him to be handballing. And also, it looks like he got 5 free kicks for, which probably gives him an extra 5. So if you take them off, he only had 11 disposals and 1 mark.
He also had 4 frees against.
Yep, that hurts the scoring a bit. But yeah, if you remove those frees 4, he only had 11 disposals and 1 mark. And they were the 2 things, like, I wanted to see, like, closer to 20 and 5 if I wanted to start him.
Yeah.
So in my YouTube video I released on rucks, this was my concern on him, the disposals and the marks, and they were good in the first game, and they don't look good in this one. So I think.
But he has a helmet, and you get bonus points for helmets.
Yeah, so he's got the helmet weighting.
Yeah.
I think I'm just literally going to go Grundy, or if I don't like what I see in round 0, I'm going to find a way to get English.
I think that's probably a play, or maybe Briggs, but we'll see. All right, so before we move on, Dersma, 81, 2 goals, still small forward that you can't pick?
I'd like to see the game and see if he was pushing up the ground, but I don't think he'll do that very often.
And McCurchis only scored 55. I don't think I'm too concerned. As long as the roll's there, which I saw in the first quarter that seemingly was there.
I'd like to see,
worried.
I think, like I said, I'll watch it and see what his role was, but actually, I don't even need to. I'm pretty comfortable with him. He's a little pig. So,
alrighty.
I'm going to say...
you got to pick your Tassie boy.
Yeah. I'm going to say LDU's like my big question from this one. Like, what happened?
Yep.
And then the other side, like a Schoenmaker and maybe Bonner, probably not. But actually, something we didn't talk about was Wilson, St Kilda forward rookie. 24 disposals, 10 marks, 106 SuperCoach.
That's an unreal game.
Yeah. He was very, very popular before this. Like, he was in a lot of teams. I'd like to watch it and see actually what he does and if he's in round 1, but that's a walk-up selection if he is, I think.
There's so many forward rookies. I'm still going back to what was it, Harvey Thomas.
Well, I think this is why I, like, when you were talking about Kyle Lohman, like, I wasn't that keen because he's got shaky job security when there's probably 55 other rookies we could pick.
They all have shaky job security, though. That's the fun of it.
Yeah, I don't know. I've heard good things about Wilson. He might not. He might be all right. Nasai Wanganeen Malira, 29 disposals, 6 marks, 107. Like, I put a thing in Slack saying, like, calm down. It's just preseason. I'm just putting this here before the game so that everyone, like, I'm predicting Wanganeen Malira will get over 100 and everyone will want him. It'd be interesting to see what people's reaction are after this because he got 107 and he had 29 touches and people will be probably keen on him.
Yeah,
I won't be because Jack Sinclair's coming back and I think you're picking him at that price. He needs to be 105 keeper and I don't see that in him.
Yep. All right. Awesome. I think thank you very much for a very thorough review. It's been 2.5 hours and if you're still listening, thank you very much for joining our journey, and don't forget there's a bunch of content on YouTube. JB's been doing a ton of YouTube content. Pig's been doing a ton of YouTube content. So there's a lot that you can find online. Look at the Dr. Supercoach channel. It's not just the podcasts, it's also the YouTube. So sorry, you'll need to look at both places in this year.
Yep.
All right. Any final words, Pig?
No, I think I'm going to go cook some dinner and probably rewatch this Kilda North game and see what happened to my LDU.
Alrighty. Well, thanks everyone for joining us and tune in next time.